Copies of the agenda for tonight's meeting are available at the entrance to the room. Additionally, the agendas and minutes of prior meetings are available on the city's website. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with the agenda as presented or amended by the Planning Commission. The roles and responsibilities of the Planning Commission are outlined on the reverse side of tonight's agenda. State law establishes planning commissions. The commission is comprised of 9 members, all of whom have volunteered to serve. Members are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by City Council. The other individuals seated at the table this evening are representatives of the city's planning department, the city's attorney's office, the city's planning consultant, Carlisle Wortman Associates. If you wish to address the Planning Commission, please come forward when recognized and provide your name and address on the sign-in sheet. Please begin your remarks by stating your name for the benefit of the commissioners. All remarks are to be addressed to the Planning Commission, not to anyone else in the room. At this time, I ask that all cell phones, Blackberries, PDAs, or any other devices that might disrupt this meeting please either be placed in silent mode or turned off. And for items that are not public hearings, I will provide an opportunity for public comment. And the roll call, Kathy, thank you.
Mr. Edmonds?
Here.
Mr. Hudson?
Here.
Mr. Kempen?
Here.
Mr. Krent?
Here.
Mr. Zanzika? Mr. Shepke?
Here.
Mr. Schultz?
Here.
Mr. Stratt?
Here.
Mr. Tagle?
Here. All right, second item, approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion, or are there any amendments? Mr. Edmonds.
Move to approve.
Mr. Stratt, second.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Kempen?
Yes.
Mr. Krent?
Yes.
Mr. Shepke?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Stratt?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
All right, item number 3, the minutes from the August 13th, 2013 regular meeting. You've all had a chance to look at them. Are there any discussion items or comments? If not, could I have a motion? Yes, Mr. Kemp.
To approve. I'll second.
Thanks, Mr. Kemp. Mr. Krent seconded.
And who was the motion?
Mr. Kempen.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Kempen?
Yes.
Mr. Krent?
Yes.
Mr. Shepke?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Stratt?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
All right, item 4, public comment for items that are not on the agenda. If there's anything anyone would like to bring to the commission for items that are not on the agenda, please come forward. Sir, did you want to come forward? These are for items that are not, comments for items not on the agenda. All right, seeing no one. Item number 5, Zoning Board of Appeals, a ZBA report.
There was no ZBA meeting held this month, so there's no report.
All right. Item number 6, moving right along, the Downtown Development Authority, the DDA report.
There was no DDA meeting, hence no DDA report.
All right. Would you like to give us a planning and zoning report?
Yeah, really the only issue of note that really kind of jumps out is MJR Movie Theater at Maple and Livernois went before the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority today for approval of a Brownfield redevelopment plan, which basically they seek assistance for some remediation of some environmental issues on the site and some other work that has to be done. And they were given a recommendation of approval by the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. That will go before City Council at a public hearing September 23rd for consideration.
Thank you. All right, moving on. First item is a postponed item. It's conditional rezoning application file number CR009. Proposed Troy Marriott Hotels, west side of Stevenson Highway, north of 14 Mile, 333 Stevenson Highway, Section 35, from O Office District to OM Office Mixed Use District. Mr. Carlisle, is that going to be you?
Yes, thank you. As the chairman alluded to, the application tonight is for conditional rezoning, site plan approval, and special use approval for a proposed 2 hotel development located at 333 Stevenson Highway. The conditions proposed by the applicant in regarding this rezoning from O to OM is the use of the parcel for lodging as well as the submitted site plan. The Planning Commission last reviewed this item at the July 23rd meeting, and after a discussion with the applicant did agree to come back with the site plan as submitted. The main issues or points of discussion at the last Planning Commission meeting by both the Planning Commission as well as adjacent neighbors was the impact of the hotels upon those adjacent neighbors, and specifically sight lines from the third and fourth story, as well as increased noise and light due to the building activity, especially the activity in the rear of the site. In response to the concerns raised by the neighbors as well as the Planning Commission, the applicant did move the building closer to Stevenson Highway. It's now located 80 feet from Stevenson Highway. In doing this, leaves approximately 160 feet from the rear property line to the first story of the Town Place Suites, and 197 feet from the second to fourth story of the Town Place Suites. In addition, it moves the building, the Fairfield Hotel development, 185 feet from the rear property line. In addition to this, to moving the buildings, the only other change to the site plan that we noticed was that the applicant has provided 31 white spruce and 21 sugar maples, and these are going to be planted at 12 to 15 feet at height at planting time. However, even with the proposed changes to the site plan, we do have some additional concerns regarding the plan that was submitted. I did propose a detailed report that was included in the packet. I'm not going to go over every single site planning issue, but I'm going to raise those that are in relation to the concerns raised by the Planning Commission and the neighbors at the previous meeting. I will start with the site arrangement. As I did note, the applicant has made changes to the site location by moving the building up closer to Stevenson. However, the Planning Commission as well as neighbors did ask for alternatives to be considered by the applicant. The first was turning the building approximately 90 degrees so that the short side is parallel to the residence. This would reduce the number of windows, as well as locate most of the building activity between the buildings. The issue with that, the issue with that is that it does place the buildings closer to the rear property line, and so there's some trade-off with that. The second issue to consider was to remove or reduce parking in front of the building and move the building even closer to Stevenson, again allowing for increased setback to the rear property lines. And then lastly was to alter the floor plan so that more of the mechanical utilities and stairs are located in the rear elevation. Again, this would reduce the number of windows and sight lines in the adjacent property. The applicant has not given us any indication that they did consider alternatives, so the applicant should address that issue tonight if alternatives were considered for site arrangement. The second issue is in regard to access. Engineering has expressed some concern with the location of the southern access point, which is in the middle of the site. It is directly adjacent or very close in proximity to the crossover of Stevenson Highway. In addition, there is a light at that location and a stop bar, and so the location of that access point will not work according to engineers' review. So we've asked the applicant to address that issue and relocate that access point in their resubmittal. The third issue is in regard to parking. Parking for hotel use is based on the number of rooms as well as the employee count at maximum shift. The applicant has provided one space for every hotel as well as 6 additional spaces for employees. We just need confirmation from the applicant that 6 employees for both hotels is the maximum employee count at the largest shift. We just think there will be more than 6 employees at the site at the largest shift at one time. The applicant did complete a landscape plan. The number of trees as well as the size of the trees do exceed the ordinance requirement. The only thing missing from this is a landscape percentage calculation, and that needs to be confirmed. In regards to noise, the applicant has noted that they will repair the existing 6-foot-high concrete wall that's along the rear property line. The only thing we note with that is that we recommend that that be replaced with an 8-foot-high screen wall as part of the site plan approval. In regards to photometrics, the applicant proposes 12 pole-mounted lights. 5 will be located along Stevenson Highway. 4 will be located internally. I'm sorry, 3 will be located internally adjacent to the buildings, and 4 will be located in the rear parking lot. Our recommendation is that the applicant should reduce the pole heights to 15 feet, so at a minimum they are screened by the landscaping that's being proposed. This might require an additional pole, but the trade-off for additional pole versus pole height should be a benefit to the adjacent neighbors. In addition, the applicant does not show any building lighting. Building lighting is required by the code at all outdoor doors, so the applicant should show building lighting at least on the first floor, as well as confirm if there's any building lighting on the second or above floors. The applicant has submitted elevations for both buildings. We do note that the primary building material is an EIFS material. We do have concerns regarding that material for long-term durability and maintenance issues. Just to note, we did review the application in regards to the conditional use standard as well as the special use standards, and many of our findings are in your packet. For the most part, our findings are rather inconclusive at this point because of the issues outlined in the site plan review. So in summary, because the applicant has submitted a conditional rezoning that is contingent upon the approval of the site plan, we do recommend that the following issues be identified prior to recommendation of approval of the conditional use, the conditional zoning, the special use, as well as the site plan approval. And these issues are consideration of site plan alternatives, confirmation of the parking count, a change to site access based on engineering's review, sound wall and lighting improvements, as well as consideration of a change in material use. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Carlisle? Seeing no questions, would the petitioner like to come forward?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Victor Soroki. We are the architects for the two hotels that are proposed for A&M Hospitality. Along with myself is Jeff Rintz, who is a project architect in our office, and our civil engineer is Giffords Webster, and Andy Wakeland is here from Giffords Webster to answer any of the site questions and landscape questions as well. Our owner is A&M Hospitality. Akram Namu is one of the principal owners. He will be here shortly. He had another commitment that he was trying to get here as soon as he can, so I'm sure he'll walk in as we're speaking. And I just want to also say that for everybody's benefit, it's important to note that we have a very experienced team. We've done many hotel projects ourselves. So has Giffords Webster, and most importantly, our owner-developer, A&M Hospitality, they own and operate over 50 different hotel products. So they are a very sophisticated hotel owner and developer. They hold on to their properties, they manage their properties, they do a very good job, they've been very successful at it, and they enjoy doing new products as well, like we're proposing here for two new Marriott products. The two are the Fairfield Inn and Suites, and that is a limited service product. And then we have the Town Place, which is the extended stay product. And these two hotels do complement each other. They're both by Marriott. They'll be brand new, and I will talk about some of the design features of the hotel. These hotels are standard prototypes that are defined and outlined by the Marriott Corporation. So while we have some flexibility, Akram is here. Okay, thank you. While we have some flexibility to make some changes, for the most part, these projects go through a very scrutinous design by Marriott, and they ask us to hold those design features as close as we can. Obviously, we think we have a site plan that makes some sense. We think it's a thoughtful site plan. I know there was some discussion about rotating the hotels, and I'll speak to that in a minute. We have a site that is large enough. It's 4.5 acres. We think it's large enough to support the two hotel projects. And of course, we're asking for the conditional rezoning request from O to OM office mixed use. When we look at the report by Carlisle Workman and we look at all of the requirements in the OM, we feel that we meet and exceed all of the items that are requested in the OM district. In addition, there are 5 conditions that the Planning Commission is supposed to evaluate on these conditional zoning requests. And again, we believe that we answer positively in all 5 conditions. I won't go through those yet. I'm happy to go through them later if we need to. But we think it's consistent with the master plan. We think that we meet the conditions of the OM district, and we believe that the development is compatible with adjacent uses. Of course, we have single-family to the west, and I know there's been some concern and some comments from neighbors, which we'll try to speak to. We have office to the south, we have a research center to the east, and we have OM zoning to the north. With regards to the concern of the residents, we did try and work towards mitigating some of their concerns. As you know, we have added more landscaping to the rear property line. We have a very large green belt back there, probably 50 feet in green belt. There is some power poles and a 20-foot overhead utility easement that we need to respect. We will repair the wall. We're certainly prepared to talk about the wall, whether it's 6 feet or 8 feet. However, we have an intensified landscape plan, and quite frankly, we think the landscaping and that's proposed will do more to satisfy the concerns of the residents than the wall. In addition, we would also note that we have shown two loading zones on the site plan. And actually, the ordinance does not require the loading zones, and quite frankly, the hotels really have very, very minimal loading. In fact, those loading zones really never get used, especially by the limited service hotels. And when I say limited service hotel, it's a hotel that does not have full restaurant facilities, it does not have banquet facilities. These are primarily business operated type hotels for the business traveler. And so you have there is sort of a limited breakfast selection that is available, like a continental breakfast, and that's pretty much it. So with regards to staffing and employees, the employee load is quite low, and Mr. Namu can certainly speak to that. Generally, you have a general manager and maybe an assistant manager on premise, and then during the day there's a few housekeeping people. So, and the housekeeping will go from one hotel to the other hotel. So the number of employees is very, very light. Furthermore, I would say that these hotels never really run at 100% occupancy. The typical occupancy of these hotels is typically around 70%. So even though we're providing parking in a 1-to-1 ratio, which is required by the ordinance, you never really have a 1-to-1 ratio on the rooms. Furthermore, actually, many of the business travelers will come by metro car or taxi and get dropped off, or business colleagues will ride together in more than one car. So it's not uncommon that there'll be 70% occupancy and the parking lot will never be 100% full. We've done the best we can, we think, from a site planning standpoint to orient the hotels so that they're fronting on Stevenson Highway. We did look at rotating them 90 degrees so that they would be perpendicular. It just really was a awkward site plan arrangement, and quite frankly, it actually made the hotels much closer to the residences. The Fairfield Inn is about 185 feet from the rear property line. And the Town Place, the upper floors, the upper second, third, and fourth floor, it's almost 200 feet from the property line. If we rotate the hotels 90 degrees, they'll be within 60 to 70 feet of the property line of the rear property line to the neighbors. So it is much closer. In addition, you will not eliminate the idea that rooms cannot look into these rear yards just by rotating them. You can certainly have angled views into the rear yards, and just as many rooms will, if not even more. In fact, if you look at the studies that were done that Giffords Webster drew, where they showed the trees and the landscaping, they showed the existing conditions and the site sections, those are them right there. You will see that as we move the hotels away from the rear property line, we do a better job of eclipsing the views from the rooms. In fact, when the trees are first planted, the views from the residences to the hotel, the only rooms that will have a view to the rear yard, or conversely, for the residents to see into the hotel, would be from the 4th floor. And that's when the trees are first planted. Obviously, the trees will grow, and in a short time, it will totally eclipse the view of the hotel. So as the hotel, if the hotel is rotated in a perpendicular fashion, the buildings will be closer, and the trees will not do as good of a job eclipsing the views into those rooms. And furthermore, just from a site strategy and an orientation, you want the buildings to really front on the road. That's the proper site planning procedure. And even urbanistically, that's what we're trying to do today. We're trying to move the buildings closer to the road. The Fairfield Inn has a portico share that would want to front the road as well, and that obviously should be oriented towards Stevenson Highway. I think as we talk about building materials and we talk about the comments from Carlisle Workman, and I'm going to architect's easel is the silver one, and the architect's easel would not have tilted like that. That's the engineer's easel. Right. So these renderings illustrate the 2 hotel elevations. And what I wanted to talk about were the building materials. I know that was a suggestion and a comment. We can, with the Fairfield Inn, have masonry on the ground floor and have a, either an EIFS or a fibrous cementitious board on the upper floor. The renderings do depict EIFS as a primary material and some limited stone, but we can do the entire first floor in masonry. The problem with doing the upper floors in masonry is that there's actually a cantilever on both sides, and to carry the masonry on the cantilever would be very difficult. If the commission feels that the cementitious board is preferred over the EIFS, we're happy to do that. And I should also say that the elevations for the town place do depict masonry on the entire first floor, along with several design elements. As you go up certain of these gable elements, the masonry goes to the 2nd and 3rd floor. And then they use a cementitious fiber board for the upper floors. So I would say it's about 40% masonry, and the balance of it is cementitious fiber board. As you will note, between the 2 hotels, that the town place actually has a sloped or a pitched roof, and the Fairfield is actually a flat roof. And just as a point of just a small correction, I think the report says that the hotels have a height of 69 feet, 4 stories. They are 4 stories, but they're not 69 feet. Actually, the Fairfield height is 53 feet in the center, which is the highest point, and it's 43 feet for the majority of the roof, which is where all the rooms are. The town place, because it has a sloped roof, if we measure to the highest point of, or if we, I should say, if we measure to the midpoint of the largest gable, we would be at 56 feet, and to the, actually I take that back. The ridge is at 56 feet. The midpoint is at 49 feet of the highest gable. So both of those heights are certainly below what is anticipated or what is permitted in the OM. I would just also offer that if, in fact, we do not put in the loading spaces because we're not required by ordinance, and quite frankly, the owners don't need the loading spaces, these two areas on the site where we have the loading spaces, we can convert to landscaping and provide even more landscaping, so we're happy to do that. Unless the commission would prefer us to have some additional parking, but we think we have sufficient parking, certainly, and I would propose that we do landscaping. With that, if Andy wants to speak to any specifics with regards to the approach, I'll let him speak to it, and with regards to the landscaping, I'll let him speak to. Regarding the light pole height, we're happy to bring it down to 15 feet. That's not a problem, and if we have to add 1 or 2 additional poles, we're happy to do that as well. There is one small detail with regards to lighting, where the lighting is basically on both hotels at the ground level at the buildings, and it's primarily at the doors and the canopies, as you would imagine it to be. And of course, we're required by code to have lighting at the doors for egress and for safety, and from a practical concern. Marriott does have one highlighted lighting element on the Fairfield, and it's on this element right here. They have a band of light that runs vertically as sort of a colored neon on the front face that runs to the 4th floor line. That's one of their signatures. It would be facing Stevenson only. It would not be visible at all from the residence, and hopefully that would not be a problem. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy, and maybe Akram will want to say a few things, and I'm happy to answer any questions you would have.
Please,
Sign in?
Yeah,
sure.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just a few things that I wanted to point out. We did take all of your comments to heart from the last meeting. I know one of the comments that you had asked about was possibly frosting the windows in the back that would face out that way. We talked to Marriott, and we got a letter from them basically saying that they would not allow that because of the detrimental impact that this would result in for the guest experience at the hotel. So we definitely did go through it and talk to them just to see if that would be allowed, and that's not a possibility. But other than that, we actually did receive also an approval letter from Marriott. They came and saw the site. They also saw the site plans that we had submitted to you, and they are completely happy with our site and are ready to go as soon as we can seek approval from you. There was a couple of other items that I did see in Ben's review letter that I just wanted to address. Just wanted to, again, mention that we're over 3 times what the required setbacks are in the front yard and the rear yard, and we're over double the setback in the side yards. Just to mention how much we have obviously worked with you. Last time we had the dumpster was over here on this side, and we moved that to the south side here just because of a comment that we got from one of the residents. They didn't want that there, so we flipped it to the other side because that's going to be the other OM building over here. I think it's O building to the south, so that won't be an issue for any resident down there because they'll be much farther away. And we did go through and change the trees out, so now you have a mixture of them. That way, during the winter time, you'll still have that tree effect back there to block out any of that sight line. And we are, typically, they try to plant the trees around 8 feet tall. That's, I mean, very typical when you're gonna go plant a tree. So we went and talked with the owner, and I obviously talked with Ben as well. And we said, well, it's going to cost us a lot more, obviously, to put in trees that are 12 to 15 foot tall. But we wanted to make sure that we could get them as tall as possible when planting so that we could, you know, give the best look for the resident and for the city. Because I know you guys wanted them to be as tall as possible. If you really plant anything over 15 foot tall, it's possible, but it usually results in a lot of problems with the trees tipping over, and they call it a sail effect because the tree is so big that it's not rooted in very well and it'll just tip right over, so that becomes more problematic. There was a few other comments that Ben had, such as implementing some kind of bicycle parking, and since I was just biking past this site all weekend long, I would agree that yes, we can definitely put in some bicycle parking. I would probably want to position that right in the rear of the hotels, just because if I had my bike out there, I'd probably want it to be a little more out of sight so that people aren't going to be tempted at all, and that's where I'm probably going to have it near my car anyways. So that's not an issue at all. In regards to the lighting, we can drop that down to the 15 foot. You know, that's where we started. A typical light pole is around 20 foot, but if we want that to be lower, that's not a problem. We can do that. We'll add in the additional lights where needed, but we're going to try to keep that lighting that would be near the residential area as minimal as possible. The other item that Ben had brought up was the amount of workers at the hotel. Since these hotels are both Marriott, they'll be able to kind of utilize staff between the hotels. So they are planning on only about 6 of the workers at one time. That's the plan. And of course, as Victor mentioned, often I would say very, very rarely you're ever going to get a full parking lot anyways. But if we did take out those loading zones and not put in the landscaping, then we definitely could put in a few more parking spots if you feel that we should have a couple more. That's not a problem. But I'm always one to try to eliminate the parking as much as possible because I don't like to be overparked. And we also mentioned sound barrier wall. I'm not really, I don't really think that it's necessary. I think we have the 12 to 15 foot tall trees all along that back property line there, as well as we have 2 hotels that are around 50 foot tall, about 200 foot long. Those are already going to be blocking a lot of sound from I-75. And being out on this site quite often, I don't think it's going to be a lot of noise coming across. We're very happy to address all the comments with Ben and keep this project moving forward as quickly as possible. So I'll let Akram speak.
Did you get a chance to sign in?
Let me do that right now.
Thank you.
Write my name while you're at it.
Yep.
Good evening again. Really, it was very beneficial to come back and address all the points raised in the previous meeting. And I have instructed the engineer and the architect to take it to heart and do the best we can to accommodate and think about all the solutions and possibilities to address the issues and concerns of the residents. I think we came up with a great plan. Marriott approved this project. They came and spent some serious time looking at the project. The location is very important. It is a very close proximity from the highway and the exit. It's very strategic location as far as the accommodation and of course the easiness of in and out, plus the restaurants around and the accommodation around. We went beyond the requirements. The cost was not a major issue. We have, we will add brick on the first floors. We will do whatever sound barriers we can. And we have contacted, even as he said, Marriott to do any windows that are, frosted or, obviously these are not the standards and they did not accept them. So truly, sincerely, we went and researched and did our homework and tried to accommodate every comment that was brought up in the last meeting and accommodate, of course, the residents as much as we can and address the issues. And I think I would rather have two beautiful hotels than an empty office building sitting there for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, do we have any questions for the petitioner?
I guess I'll start.
Grant?
Looking at the landscaping, the elevation view showing the line of sight, it was interesting that on the drawing, it showed, this is referring to, let's see, drawing titled Sightline Profile Plan.
It's up on the screen.
Oh, thank you. It is, good. It shows the trees there staggered. It's from the light pole going east, it's 14 feet, then there's another 13 feet to the second row of trees. Yet, on the plan view, I only see one row of trees. It just doesn't jive with me. Can you give me a little better understanding of how that layout works?
If I may.
Yep. I didn't get this. Oh, so it's just a couple trees that... Oh. All right. So then seeing what you have, you've got deciduous and conifers. When the conifers will be there all year round, but the deciduous loses their leaves, obviously. So those areas will be, have visibility through them. Not a lot. It's screened, I understand, but because of the branches. Is that, as far as light seeping over or visibility to the building, how do you address that?
Yeah, I don't perceive it to be an issue in our photometrics plan. Okay. That's why we tried to keep the light poles right down the center of the parking lot, so that basically the lighting would stop as minimal as possible right at the trees. Then we still have another 40 feet to get to the 6-foot high wall. Then we get to the residence. So we tried to basically make our site a little smaller and allow that 40-foot buffer for any light that may possibly get through all the conifers, depending whether it's summer or winter, they're always going to be there. And those will obviously also be that 35 to 40-foot tall tree.
Thank you. Well, I'll just follow through. Another quick question. We talked, I think it was mentioned by the consultant's report about incorporating the lighting on islands that are landscaped as opposed to just sticking a concrete pillar in the middle, which some people back into by mistake because a lot of the newer cars, unless they have television in the back, have very poor visibility. So it would be nice to not have these concrete pillars out in the middle of a parking. Well, it's not in the middle of a parking lot, but it's without protection, not a visible protection sometimes.
That's actually when we put that in the original design, which I have over there. But we had that whole landscape strip, that 10-foot strip in the middle of the parking lot. If you remember, it's actually one good reason why I had that there was so that I could put the light poles in the middle and not worry about it. However, we wanted to shift the site as close to Stevenson as we could, so we had to get rid of that and put that green space back to the back of the site. But we, of course, are going to work with you as much as possible, so if we put in those 15-foot tall trees, we're going to need more light poles, or 15-foot tall lamp poles. We'll need more of the poles, so we can maneuver those around to try to hit the landscape islands as much as possible.
Okay. It'd be nice if they were a little more protected away from drivers,
Definitely.
Go ahead.
Anyone else? Would you just clarify for me, what are the tree heights going to be at planting?
Well, 12 to 15 foot. You buy them, you can't buy just a 15-foot tall tree. You buy a 12 to 15-foot tall tree.
And how are you going to overcome the sail effect?
Staking.
Yeah, we'll have to stake the trees as much as possible, but from what I've been told, it's not a huge issue for the 12 to 15-foot tall trees. It's if you go above the 15-foot tall tree, that's when you run into that effect.
And with this, with the conifers, do you have any idea what the growth rate is per year?
I believe it was 6 inches in the first year, and then it's going to be about a foot every year subsequent.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Schultz.
I'd like to agree with the engineer that I think these buildings would in fact give some sound buffering from the road noise of I-75, but I believe the reason we're looking at an 8-foot wall along the property line is to give the residents more shielding from the noise in your development than the noise from I-75. My concern is how much damage is going to be done and how many trees on the, or vegetation on the other side of the wall might be damaged replacing a 6-foot wall with an 8-foot wall. But nothing that's insurmountable for sure.
Mr. Shepke?
Yes, I've been making quite a few notes here. I like the idea that the hotels will block the sound from I-75. I live on a street that abuts I-75, and I agree it will make a lot better sound barrier than the residents are used to right now. I also like your willingness to go along and reduce the height of the lighting. Glare and from the parking lot can be very annoying and a distraction to residential neighborhoods. I also like you moving the setback away from the back as far as you can and making additional tree barrier available. I also like the idea of the in the loading zones back there where you could make that an extra buffer, a barrier with vegetation. You know, to me, the 8-foot wall is important if it won't disrupt the trees because of the glare from the headlights. Cars driving around there, you are going to get glare, and it might be just glare. It might not be actual headlights in the neighborhood, but it could be glare. And I think that an extra 2 feet go a long way to knocking that down. So these are very positive things I've seen in the when you've come back to the Planning Commission. So I guess that's about all I have to say. I'd like to hear what some of the other comments are going to be.
Anyone else?
No one else. I'd like to make another comment.
Sure.
It's regarding the facades, the vertical, the elevations. I'm not terrible. The what's it called? The town place looks fine. The Fairfield one looks like a. I mean, I realize architectural style comes and goes and everything changes, but you know, I look at that yellow block with those 9 little blocks in there. I mean, an elementary school kid drawing a building would draw that, and it just doesn't look architecturally stunning. You know, I realize it's, you know, it's a very subjective thing, but I've seen Fairfield inns that look homey. This doesn't. This looks more industrial. Is that? Can you kind of address what the feeling of Marriott is on those different looks?
Sure. Well, as I said earlier, obviously these are prototypes that Marriott puts out, and they are constantly sort of always updating their look. I think it's fair to say that this building is a more modern building than maybe you've seen some of the other Fairfields look, but this is the direction that Marriott is going, and in fact we're seeing this in quite a few of the hotel franchises around the country, that they are going for a more modern aesthetic. As I said, we have a little bit of leeway with some of the materials, and as we said, we would be willing to do masonry on the ground floor to help warm it up. But this is their prototype, and we will be obligated for this look. Personally, I actually think it's a fairly decent looking building, and I'm speaking as an architect, and we didn't necessarily have all the design control on this building, but I think it's an attractive building, and I like the fact that Marriott is looking for a more modern aesthetic. If I could just to answer maybe a couple of the other questions, and I didn't mean to, I'll be happy to answer more if you want, but I did speak with Mr. Namu, and if it is important to the commission to go with an 8-foot masonry wall, we would do that at the neighbor's property line. Again, I think the trees are going to do most of the work here, but if that is the preference of the commission, again, showing the willingness to try to be a good neighbor, if that was the preference, we could do it. I also would say that, quite frankly, the hotels are a fairly quiet use, especially these hotels, because they're a limited service, they're extended stays, they're primarily for the business traveler. You know, if you think about it, hotels really an extension of a residence, and so we don't have big ballrooms and bands, we don't have large congregations. People come in the afternoon or evening, they leave in the morning. During the day, they're very, very quiet. At night, quite frankly, they're sleeping. It's for the business traveler. They get up, they have breakfast, and they go to their business meetings. No drinking? No parties. So, you know, I really, it's a pretty light use, and I think, quite frankly, it's a good compatible use, and it's a use that is permitted in the OM, and I think it's a good use in the OM. And it's an opportunity. I always like to look at these projects as opportunities. It's an opportunity to take a site, quite frankly, that has been vacant for quite a while. We know we've got a surplus of office space and industrial space, not only in Troy, but in southeast Michigan. And these hotels will be occupied, they'll be new, they'll be busy, and it should be good for the area and for the entire city. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any other questions.
Any other questions for the petitioner? All right, I'd like to have a seat.
Thank you.
May I ask one to staff?
Pardon me?
May I ask a
Yes,
question
absolutely.
to staff? Brent, the loading zones that are on the site plan, by rough calculation, are about 50 feet long. Could we designate those as land-banked parking and have them landscaped at the time of construction so that if in the future we discover that there is insufficient parking, it could be brought back as 10 additional parking spaces? We
could. The way we treat loading zones, the petitioner is correct. If they can, if the characteristics of their use requires very infrequent loading and unloading, we don't, you know, every case is different, and if they're confident that they're not going to be needed that often, or their deliveries are typically via UPS and very quick, and they just, you know, they don't actually need the loading zones, and we can, first of all, they can eliminate them and landscape them, or they can land bank them for future parking if needed.
I'd just like to have the option to have 10 more parking spaces if we discover that there is insufficient parking.
Ms. Lancaster, I have a question for you. Since this is a postponed item, the public hearing was closed at the last meeting. We need to reopen it for this meeting.
Because things have changed and there have been some additions, I would reopen the public meeting, and you might ask your audience if they already made comments, if they could, because for the sake of time, but I would reopen the public meeting.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments before I open the public hearing? All right, anyone in the public would like to come forward and speak to this item?
Is there anything new?
And for those that have been up here before, if you're repeating the same comments, please keep them brief.
I'm Nick. I was here last time. Nick Penshoff. I live at 302 Redwood. After reviewing the previous meeting, it would seem that revenue and trees dominated the conversation rather than the importance of maintaining a peaceful, family-friendly neighborhood. I'd like to share some additional concerns I have tonight. Recently, Troy was named top 10 town for families by Family Circle magazine. I wonder what they would think of our current rezoning proposal. Is it really what's best for families in our neighborhood or any neighborhood in Troy? I feel that if I were a North Troy resident, this proposal wouldn't even be on the table. I found 4 criminal incidents dating back the past 3 months at Troy area hotels. Larcenies, disorderly conduct, and drug possessions were reported. Not really family friendly. 2 of the incidents were reported at the Marriott Hotel on Big Beaver Road. If criminals are willing to commit larcenies within a half mile of a police department, what will they do at hotels located 4 miles away? Much of the talk at the last meeting concerned the types and amount of tree cover. Deciduous trees will not provide cover during late fall, winter, and early spring. Our privacy will still be infringed upon. Deciduous trees will also not keep criminals from hopping the fence to enter into our backyard or act as a noise barrier. At the last meeting, it was stated that the hotels had to be 4 stories. In doing research, all of the Fairfield Inn hotels in the area are 3 stories or under. The closest 4-story Fairfield Inn is in Ann Arbor, and it doesn't back up to a residential neighborhood. I would like to know what type of client your extended stay hotel would accept. If business isn't booming as you expect, who will we be sharing our neighborhood with? Troy currently has 13 hotels, Candlewood Suites, and so on, as well as 2 additional proposals near Big Beaver and I-75, according to the Detroit Free Press, including the 5 hotels directly south of 14 and Stevenson. That would make 20 hotels in the Troy area. Are more hotels really needed? By the showing a solid area of our neighborhood, I urge that the commission keep the zoning as is. Thanks.
Thank you. Sir, did you sign in?
Good evening, Jim Stone. Thanks for this opportunity. I appreciate the fact that the council and developer and all others involved in this have taken to heart the privacy issue. It's one of the 2 critical issues that the residents have. Tonight I'd like to address the other issue that is just completely forgotten in all of this, which Nick alluded to a little bit. At the last meeting, reference was made to all the other possibilities that could be on that site. It was kind of presented in a way to say that these could be worse options. Frankly, they'd be better options. So a convalescent home was mentioned, a medical office was mentioned, and then the dreaded university. I happen to be employed in that field for 40 years. Made on-site visits to universities and campuses, evaluated them. On some of those campuses, made 20, 30 visits. Now, the type of facility that would be built there would be an annex, a satellite. And I can assure you that those facilities, those universities or campuses, attract the most responsible citizens you can find. They're the 22 to 30-year-olds who've kind of got the light in their head and realize they better get serious, or they need some additional education. So from 8 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock, you have the most responsible individuals you can find in the society on that site. Now, from 10 to 7 in the morning, you could shoot a cannon. They're the quietest places on earth. The antithesis is a hotel or a motel. Now, just go down to the police blotter. I mentioned this before. I come back from vacation, I take a look, I-75 in Crooks, what are they doing? The police are running around with their sirens going and their lights flashing because they're chasing somebody in the parking lot who was attending a party, got abusive, assaulted someone, and they're trying to locate them. I happen to know what's going on the corner diagonally across. I mean, you've read the newspapers. You know what clients businessmen also bring in. They don't just go to work. It's a serious problem to have a hotel or motel adjacent to a neighborhood. I appreciate all the efforts on privacy. I know you can't do anything about what I'm talking about, which is why there's strong opposition. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Is this just for comments? Can I have some things, general things clarified? How many stories? I'm Jim Kaltz, 286 Burtman. How many stories is it zoned for now? An office there, can that be 4 stories? Can that be 8 stories?
You want to answer?
Oh, you won't answer it? I can't get anything answered? I don't understand these meetings. I've never done this.
Sir, give us an opportunity.
Oh, okay.
What's the zoning allow in this change or this district?
I'm looking it up right now. The current zoning is O, which allows 3 stories. The proposed zoning to OM would permit 5 stories or 75 feet in height.
If you grant a variance or you change the zoning for this one parcel, doesn't that make all the other parcels on Stevenson the same? Don't you have to change those?
No, just
don't have to. It's just this one. Okay. What will it take you guys to say no? You can't build a hotel there. Is that in your power? Can you guys do that?
Well, if he doesn't follow, if the zoning ordinance regulations are not followed, if they do not meet
There's regulations you have to follow to get it varied, to get it changed.
Yes.
Is this plan gonna go through? Is this hotel already there?
No. There's an empty office building there.
What can the community, what can the neighborhood do?
They're here and they're speaking out, sir. That's what they can do.
Just being here, you're seeing that there's interest in this not being a hotel. Okay, I don't understand these meetings. Let me think.
You know, sir, I could suggest too that if you come in and talk to the planning department, they can give you some of the detailed answers that you're looking for as far as what the zoning ordinance specifically says and what the criteria are.
I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience?
I guess I have one more point. Think if somebody was going to build a hotel in your backyard. None of you guys would want that. You have a good plan. Let's keep the zoning plan the way it is. Let's let an office building, a medical building, a 3-story building be built. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sally Wilshire, 350 Redwood. I also have some more concerns, additional concerns about this project. I really don't want it to be rezoned, and as they mentioned before, they're only going to have maybe a 70% occupancy rate. There's no reason to build any more hotels. I discussed that at the last meeting. Our problem isn't necessarily the noise. Stevenson, yeah, it might get busy, whatever. I grew up on 15 Mile Road, so noise doesn't bother me. My thing is, who is coming into the hotels? Who is going to be jumping my fence at night? What's going to be happening there? Sound is not the problem. It's our privacy. And I'm further down from where this project is. At 4 stories, what are they going to see in my backyard? Is there any way someone can get on top of the building and take pictures of what they see now and how far out? I understand trees are supposed to help privacy issues and stuff, but in turning the buildings, that's still going to affect my privacy. I'm not going to have any privacy in my backyard. My other concern was they were talking about the material they're using for the building. We have all, most of the neighborhood is all brick. They're talking about fiberboard. What if there's a fire? What if there's wind? Is a fire department going to be able to handle this type of fire? I mean, I'm not saying anything's going to happen, but things happen. Is it going to spread to the residents? Is that brick wall going to stop it? I mean, do we have enough fire? I know they cut our police force down. They used to patrol. I bought my house over a year ago. They used to patrol all the time in my neighborhood. I don't see the police patrolling in my neighborhood like they used to. Kind of bothers me. I actually started a rezoning protest petition. They thought maybe I'm being premature, but I want to be prepared. I already have 20 signatures. We do not want this in our neighborhood, and I didn't hit everybody that I needed to hit yet. Some people weren't home, some people are on vacation, but I know they want to sign this. I'm sorry, I have notes all over the place, I apologize. What is the rate of accidents in Stevenson? If they bring this hotel, are we gonna have more accidents happening because of where the location is? I just don't understand. There's so many vacant properties in Troy. Why do we have to pick this location? Why does it have to be 4 stories? Why do we have to rezone it at all? If this is such a great plan in this area, why didn't they get it right the first time? And they didn't address the retention pond issue. Where's the retention pond going? Where is all that water going to go to? I know some of the neighbors I talked to yesterday, they already have flooding in their backyard. I have a fence issue. It's not directly behind, but I still have a fence issue no one's addressed. I mean, these are just things that we have to think about. And again, what would Family Circle think about you guys letting a hotel be built in my backyard? You don't want it in your backyard. I don't want it in my backyard. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
My name's Mary Jo Austin. I have a couple of comments to make from last month's meeting. First, you said that you can't tell anybody where to buy or what to build, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. But when they do buy, you don't have to change the zoning so they can build. And then my other comment is, you talked about sight lines. I would like to invite all of you to my backyard and see what my sight line is going to be to a 4-story building. I've got a 3-story building there now, so you can get a good idea what I'll be looking at if I'm looking at a 4th-story building.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Landreth. Landreth family have been residents of Redwood Drive for going on 30 years. It's been a pretty great 30 years. The neighborhood is and has always been a terrific place to live. It's quiet, even calm, friendly, very friendly, well-maintained, and just all around an ideal place to live. Now, we live at 218 Redwood, which is right under the gun. The existing building casts a shadow upon our home. Now, in the days when the building was occupied, and I'm thinking of when Michigan Bell owned the building, and the people that worked there, God love them, would often in the warm weather get together back by the wall that separates the areas and have lunch and cast their rubbish over the wall into our backyard. Now, I'm certain, I'm just absolutely certain that tourists would be much more considerate of our property than that. But, you sense a bit of sarcasm there. Should these buildings become reality, this will not only eliminate our feeling of privacy and our sense of security, but I wonder what kind of damage it will do to our property value. Now, I don't see in the years to come, after my wife and I pass from this mortal coil and our sons inherit our home, because our sons are all grown and gone with families of their own, so they'll just want to sell our home. And somehow I can't imagine a lineup of 20 people in the driveway just hoping and praying for the opportunity to purchase a house that has 2 hotels in the backyard. I don't see that happening. So yes, we are very concerned, and I've talked to many neighbors on Redwood who aren't able to be here tonight, and I don't recall one of them saying, oh yeah, we're all for this project. So yes, those of us that are here tonight are obviously vigorously opposed to a change in the zoning. We love our neighborhood the way it is. We wish to keep it this way. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you.
My name is Matt Morrison. I live at 182 Redwood. It's right on the southern end of this proposed development. I have a couple of concerns, I guess 2 categories. Maybe, I guess you could call it personal, and then financial. Yeah, I want to reiterate a couple of things that have already been said. Property values I'm concerned about. It's an aging neighborhood. Houses average 1950s, 60s. Property values are already, destined to decline eventually. Over time, I think this will speed that up. As far as aesthetics, all these concerns have already been put forth, but I want to reiterate, this is not, it looks very cool from the front, and that's awesome. But in the back of a hotel is the business end, and that's what we will see. There's power line issues. Recently, I didn't attend the last meeting to rezone the property directly behind my house, which is turned into, it used to be a bank, like a banking office center. It was quiet after 5 o'clock. Now it is, I believe, 24-hour shipping and receiving business of some sort. They installed new light poles. They're 30 feet high. There's dumpsters being changed out at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. It's loud. It's terrible. I wish I would have attended. They also installed 2 giant green air filter systems that sound like jet engines that run all day. It's already negatively affected my property value. This would be the coffin nail. I also recently had an individual jump my fence. The fence directly behind my house is maybe 6 to 8 feet on my side and a solid 12 on the other because it goes down. This guy jumped it like it was, a white picket fence. He's not the only one who could do it. Transient population. Despite what you say, these hotels are mainly intended for business travelers who are, I'm sure, the cream of the crop, business travelers, whatever. That's what you intend, but you're not going to turn people away based on their intentions at your hotel. And you can't stop parties at a hotel with 2 employees. It's going to happen. And I'm not only concerned about what they can see from their window, but what I can see from my backyard. I have a son who I'd rather not get his first lesson on the birds and the bees through the 4-story window of a hotel. I would suggest maybe slats that angle one way or the other, as opposed to frosted windows. Also, there's a park right at the end of that street that has access from Stevenson. on foot. And also, like I said, transient population. They walk, they bike. There's just going to be more foot traffic in an area where there's not a lot right now. Right now, there's no real reason for anyone to go into this neighborhood, into my neighborhood, unless they live there. It's not a shortcut, it's not a thoroughfare. But if you're on foot, it is a reasonable shortcut to get from Stevenson to 14 Mile to the stores right there across the street from me. I think it would be, it would invite potentially an element into the neighborhood that nobody wants to see. I like that they're willing to work with a lot of the concerns we've had. A lot of the plans that I've seen that looks great. I think the 8-foot wall is important, not just for noise, but for privacy and for, stopping people from taking that shortcut. I think you may also want to look at blocking off access to that park from Stevenson. When the development happened behind me, another line was run to the power poles that they're actually on my side of the right-of-way, the utility line there. So they're in my backyard. So I had workers in my backyard digging holes. In the winter, they left them open, and it made a mess. It was gross. And they're already unsightly high-tension power lines running along that line. They're going to have to add more services. Big transformers, aesthetically not pleasing. I would recommend if they do have to rebuild this fence, if this does go through, the right-of-way, I believe, is 6 feet. Could they push it back to the far side? To give a bigger backyard, and it may make up for the fact that you'll probably have to shred a lot of bushes and trees that people planted in their backyards. I don't think this is a good idea. I think there's a lot of hotels in that area, and I'm not sure what businesses are in immediate proximity that would be serviced by this that couldn't be serviced by other hotels that already exist. It doesn't seem to make sense. And I do wonder, what would it take? Is there enough citizen concern to offset the potential monetary gain to the city of Troy to stop this development? They seem to be within and above all the code requirements. And as far as the planning goes, if this were to happen, it's reasonable. I don't want it, we don't want it. I guess our reasons are more personal than anything to do with code or building aesthetics. What would it take? Is it possible to force this plan to be abandoned? I address this to the council at large. Can anybody answer that?
No, it's not a question. We will have discussion. We will vote on this, and I guess that's when you'll get your answer.
But it isn't possible to stop it outright, to force. I don't
think the word force really comes into play.
Well, not force. I don't mean like a coup. I mean like, is there a petition? Or, I mean, we're working on an opposition petition, which I've already signed. But would that force what would that do? Force a revote, or?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I may?
Yes.
This board is a recommending body to City Council.
Okay.
They're not deciding on this rezoning. They're making a recommendation to City Council.
Okay. So City Council is going to vote.
City Council will, when it gets to City Council, will either approve or deny.
That is the only deciding factor. Well, I mean, you're recommending, and then they will vote.
The only deciding factor, I don't understand.
Well, I mean, is there a way to for the citizens, for the people, to say, not only to say we don't want this, but to force City Council's hand?
Well, I don't know about force their hand, but you're here this evening. You're speaking. Your comments are on the public record. I heard a resident indicate that there's a protest petition that's in the works. What that does is it changes the vote at City Council from a majority to a two-thirds majority.
Okay, that's what I was after.
Okay, so I wouldn't use words like force their hand or whatnot.
That's possibly the wrong choice of words, but
the petitioner is entitled to due process, which is what they're getting, and residents are entitled to attend these public hearings and public meetings and comment and submit protest petitions, et cetera. So there's process on both sides.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any?
Hi, my name is Cynthia Wilshire, 369 East Maple Road. I've been watching the planning meetings more frequently lately, and I keep seeing the same repeated thing over and over again about landscaping and citizens' rights when you want to do something that's next to homes. Landscaping isn't it. It isn't it. You're going to plant these trees, so where do the leaves fly? They fly in the people's backyards that it abuts. Plus, you've got the bare trees. I served on the Maple Road project. I don't know how many of you were around, probably 10 years ago, and it was put on by young people from Lawrence Tech, designed what they thought Maple Road could be in the future. They had wonderful ideas. One of which was we needed a theater along in Cumbermere between Rochester and Livernois. Guess what? We got MJR coming right on the corner. A wonderful addition. And I see other things that were mentioned in the Maple Road project that are beginning to happen on Maple Road. I also remember that they included Stevenson Highway in the Maple Road study and kind of recommended that as a medical highway to the city. And at the far end, down on DeQuinder, that was an ethnic area with all kinds of ethnic markets and things available for the people. And they even talked about having a trolley running from DeQuinder to Crooks Road, and turning a lot of these factories that aren't being used into artist lofts. I mean, the ideas were absolutely inspiring from these young people that were looking towards the future. And I think that's what we've got to do. We can't cover up everything, make parking lots of everything. They came out with a new study and rezoned things. If they were so sure they got it right, then there should be no need for people to come in when there's all kinds of vacant areas in the city that could be developed without changing the zoning on them. And I think we need to go in that direction. I just noticed last night at the council meeting, they're making a list of city-owned parcels that they are thinking about selling and having a master list. So if somebody comes in and wants to buy something, we have a list too of what we've got available, and that's money in our pockets. And another idea that I saw that went down, which I was very disappointed in, but it was voted down by the council because people in the subdivision didn't want these sun collectors for DTE that would have brought income into the city because they could see them out their second-story building. I'm sure these residents would love to have those in their backyard as opposed to a hotel. They don't make any noise. DTE would keep up the landscape. We talk about landscape, it's not all there, trust me. It's a lot of hard work to keep it up. I used to be a travel agent, and I can tell you if there isn't good lighting in the parking lot, they're dangerous for women travelers. And I've traveled a lot of miles between here in North Carolina with my sister, and all we saw were women in cars, 2 women in cars traveling. Women my age, in their 60s and 70s. Our husbands don't want to travel anymore because they did that for a living and they want to stay home. But going back to this, yes, hotels are important, and everybody wants to be at an off-ramp with shopping and restaurants right close by. But in this particular case, this is not a good fit for the neighborhood or for the city of Troy, especially if there are going to be 2 more brand new hotels at the next exit on the freeway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? For those of you that are coming up, if you're going to just repeat what we've already heard, please keep your comments brief.
My name is Randall Kriebel from 277 Redwood, and I'm kind of concerned about the fact that I moved into a nice, quiet neighborhood and have a couple of four-story hotels right there. I graduated in 1961 from Troy High, so I've lived here all my life. Not particularly in that area, but this was a nice, quiet residential area, and I just totally disagree with having hotels and something like spot zoning. Like that's what it seems like to me, and I think that's very illegal. That's all I would say.
Thank you. Good evening.
Susie Flax, Manali 254 Redwood Drive.
Ma'am, could you speak into the microphone?
Yes, I'm sorry. Is that better? I think we're all a little bit nervous about this. We've been in this neighborhood a long time. My neighbors are here. Mr. and Mrs. Austin, Swarley, quite a few other ones, sorry. Mr. and Mrs. Stone, Mrs. Stone tutored all of us kids. Our parents put the park in at the end of Redwood, and also the Michigan Bell building that a lot of people refer to. Michigan Bell was never supposed to have windows in the back of it, and it got through. And I saw my dad and many other fathers here and mothers cry over that. And I want you, it's mostly all gentlemen, excuse me, two ladies, I believe, up front. I want you to think of one thing. I want you to think about your granddaughters, your daughters, and your wives being in their backyard. I want you to think of small children in their bathing suits out by the pool. You're not going to want them out in a backyard with a 4-story hotel, 2 of them, not 1, 2. And we've talked about the trees and the trees. 10 and 12-foot trees, I'm a landscaper, is nothing. I mean, you guys are all 6, 7 foot tall, right? I mean, 12 foot. When you get into 20 foot, you're talking about double the price. The tree will stand up at 20 foot. That's not the problem. The Fairfield, which I think is what, in Madison Heights, there's been so many problems. We've had prostitution. We've had drugs. We just had human trafficking. This has happened. Madison Heights, their hands are full. The police department, they're overwhelmed with the problems with the hotels. We've already got Marriott there with a problem at Fairfield. In Madison Heights, there's problems that go on every day. Who's to say, less than 0.2 of a mile, if that the problems are going to be better because we're now in Troy? Troy's vision was not for Hooters. On the council, some of the things that they said, they had Hooters at 16, and it wasn't going to be a good fit on their Golden Corridor, and some of the, but it's okay for all this stuff at 14 Mile Road. I mean, as a Christian woman, I've never been pulled into a bar, an R-rated movie, a hotel room, but what was it, $1 million spent with Hooters at the taxpayers' expense because it didn't look good on the Golden Corridor? And people were so concerned about the seating outside and about the signage of Hooters. What does it say in a small residential? I think you guys need to come and drive down Redwood at a slow drive at 25 miles an hour, which is the posted speed limit, and look what this is. It's David and Goliath. It does not fit into the neighborhood. To back up to small 1,200 square foot homes is crazy. It's just. And I think this is something that you would not want for your children or your grandchildren. And my dad worked 37 years at the same job, and most of these men and women have worked so hard, and it's not fair. It's just not fair. And I think you really need to look at it from our point of view. Come on over and see Redwood for what it is. and see if you think it can really honestly handle 2 4-story hotels there. And if you really think after looking at it that it can handle it, and you honestly within your heart believe it could handle it, then I'll say go for it. But if you, I don't think for your children or grandchildren, that's what you would want, or the city of Troy. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Tom Norton. I don't live on Redwood, but I do live in the neighborhood. I found out about this by reading the Troy Times. I was not one of the members notified within 300 feet, and I think that was woefully inadequate notice. I rise in opposition. I urge a no vote. I urge you not to increase the height limit beyond the already 3-story. And I am a member of the public. I have not had a great deal of time to prepare, but I have brought some materials that I wish that the commission would at least look at. Present them to you. There's a series of
Give them Mr. Savadant.
Series of photographs, aerial photographs from Google. They are in contrast to the materials on the city website. Much broader aerial view. Our neighborhood is immediately adjacent to Clausen, a neighborhood that's within the bounds of Clausen, which then abuts Rochester Road. We are in essence call it a pinky toe of Troy. I believe we are the southernmost residential area within the boundaries of the city of Troy. We are bounded on 2 sides by non-residential areas. The area to the immediate north is, I'm not sure exactly how it is zoned, but I can tell you that there are industrial uses in there. The area to the east, is the area within consideration tonight. That area has 1 building at 3 stories. The remainder of the buildings up and down that entire length of Stevenson, from 15 Mile to 14 Mile, are below this height limit. Query what happened in the past that allowed this use, which is higher than the existing uses in the area. And now we're in a height race. Now we're in a race to 4 stories. The change to the OM zoning would allow 5 stories. Are they going to come back and add on? Is somebody else going to come back? There is a creeping change, in essence, to our zoning, is what is happening. This neighborhood is an island. It's becoming washed over by the uses in the area that are inconsistent with the residential area. I've heard no business plan for the occupancy of these hotels. On my first page, I've pointed out to you the number of hotels within a quarter mile of this proposed location. They are all in Madison Heights. Fairfield Inn, Extended Stay America, Residence Inn, Hampton Inn, Econo Lodge, and Days Inn. They're within a quarter mile. And if you drive by those hotels, excuse me, you will notice the occupancy rates are quite low based on the amount of parking in the parking lots. How long are we going to go before these 1 or 2 close? And then what's going to come in? An individual is quoted in the Troy Times as saying that this would be a nice addition to the area to deal with what's considered to be an eyesore. You can see in the pictures, there's no eyesore. Yes, the vegetation might need some addressing currently, but it's a 3-story building. It's not falling down. The windows aren't blown out. Query what's going to happen when we have hulking 4 and potentially 5-story buildings that go out of business. And they're hotels. The type of people that might be attracted to a vacant hotel are quite different than those that might be attracted to a vacant office building. There is a potential increase for crime, which is undeniable. There's a completely different and transient character to occupants of hotels that do not exist with office buildings. It's the same people, 8 to 6, every day. City of Troy, I saw a statistic one time that our population nearly triples every day. And those are folks that come in and leave, occupy businesses. Hotels, in contrast, are very transient. These members may never be back in the same neighborhood again. We already have an increase in crime within our neighborhood. It's spilling over from Oakland Mall. There have been carjackings. There was an attempted arson on one of the streets earlier this year. We don't need more rendezvous places for Detroit politicians, as has occurred in the hotels in Madison Heights.
Amen. Amen.
The little neighborhood park was mentioned. Now, my wife and I don't have kids yet. One of the features of this neighborhood that I liked was that little neighborhood park. My son or daughter are never going down there now, not with this building. Were proper processes followed to request a change in zoning? I haven't had time, as I said, to do my research on this issue, but only residents within 300 feet were contacted. I found out about it by reading my Troy Times. That's how I found out about it. And yes, when I stand out on my porch, turn to the right and look down, I will see this building. And that's another point. Let's talk about perspective for a minute. As a person backs up further and further and further, your field of view increases. Those trees, that wall, it's not going to do anything for the third tier, the fourth tier, and fifth tier in this neighborhood as you go to the west. Sure, residents immediately abutting it might not be able to see the building with 20 years growth in trees, but the residents across the street, they're going to see it. Residents across the street from there, they're going to see it. And that's going to decrease our property values. Now, I realize our neighborhood is not the base for the highest property values in the city of Troy. It never has been. But our property values have been halved or worse in this economy. This is going to suppress any recovery in those property values. I plan on being there 5 or 6 years. I'm 11 years now. Am I going to be there till I die because I can't sell my property because nobody wants to buy with big hulking hotels? And that's not to say the neighborhood is bad. Many residents have indicated how they've lived there 30 years and enjoy it. And I enjoy it too. And yeah, I might just choose to stay. We might run out of space. I might have to add on a little addition, but I don't know. The commission might deny me a higher garage or a higher limit on my house. Problem being that we have seen such a decrease in our property values that I think every person in this room in opposition is extremely, very, very, very concerned that this is going to only negatively impact those things. We can talk endlessly about how we're going to adjust things and make things look nicer, but when someone's looking on Zillow and they see a hotel, they're going to eliminate you right away. When someone's looking in the multi-listing, oh, it backs up to hotels. Eliminate you right away. You don't even get a second look. And again, the taxpayers are the ones who foot the bill. We're the ones who pay. These businesses come in, they get tax breaks. We haven't heard yet how much of a tax break Marriott's going to get to locate here. But you can read it in the Troy Times, you can read it in the minutes of the commission, how businesses get tax breaks. We foot the bill. When services need improvement because of the location of businesses, expansion, we foot the bill. And we get a little tired of it, especially those of us who live in this neighborhood. We live here for a reason. We can't necessarily afford the $1 million house in North Troy. No longer $1 million, but it was at one point. The master plan fails to acknowledge the part quoted here on page 11 of the materials attached to the City Council meeting agenda. Fails to even acknowledge that there is a neighborhood in this area. I quote from it, "The 21st century industry classification provides area for conventional manufacturing and assembly uses, but with broader interpretation of what industrial areas can become. However, understanding the changing nature of the office market, proximity to I-75, and renewed focus on providing a mix of complementary land uses, the proposed lodging use is appropriate for this area." No recognition of the fact that this abuts a residential area. Now, I don't have the data to prove it to you, but by my anecdotal recognition, or recollection I should say, living in this city since approximately 1978, this would be the only residential neighborhood in the city of Troy that directly abuts hotels. The only. And I submit to you that that is inconsistent with any vision any of us want to have for the city of Troy. And thus I summarize by saying I am absolutely opposed. I urge a no vote. I urge a no vote to the change of the zoning. And please deny these hotels. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience?
There's sites right on Stevens.
Sir, please sit down, please.
mud.
I'll just be real brief. I'm just going to speak briefly on the privacy issue. I live at 362 Redwood, have been there about 12 years, and I appreciate all the efforts they're trying to do to make it feasible for whatever benefits there, but we live about 5 houses north from where this is proposed to be, and that other hotel on the other side of Stevenson just opened this year. I forget the name of it, but I believe that's 4 stories as well, 4 or 5, I can't recall exactly. But standing in my backyard, I can see the top 3 floors of that hotel. And if I can see them, they can see me, and that is a lot farther off than somebody's backyard. So I just wanted to clarify that. I don't have the landscape behind my fence to stop that, but nonetheless, if it was right in the backyard, it's so much closer, and I can see all of that. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Hi, Joan DeVera. I'm at 157 Redwood. At the last meeting, I watched it on YouTube, and there was a mention about whether there were homes in the neighborhood that had second stories. I do. I have a dormer on the second story. My house faces south, but I still see the entire neighborhood. Quite frankly, I don't think I'd appreciate always looking out my windows upstairs and seeing 2 looming hotels right to my east side of my home. We love the neighborhood. I've lived in the neighborhood for 21 years. We moved my parents into the neighborhood because we've always liked that area. We're in the Royal Oak School District, so my kids went to Royal Oak schools, but I'll always remember the first day I moved into the neighborhood, and we used to have people come and welcome you into the neighborhood back then, and somebody would come and say, you know, welcome to Troy, and you live in the Panhandle, is what I was told of Troy. But I've always enjoyed being close to Royal Oak and Madison Heights and Clawson, and it's been a good area. It's been fairly a safe area, and quite honestly, looking at 2 big hotels, I don't see a need for more hotels right next to us. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this item? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing, bring it back to the table. Ben, I have a question for you. One of your comments in your report indicated the drive is an issue with engineering and with
Yes.
our consultant.
Yes.
What's the position on that? Are they basically saying it cannot go there?
They would, based on the proximity of the drive in relation to the crossover and the light, they would not approve the access point at that location.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Stratt.
I just wondered, were there any other comments from engineering as it relates to the stormwater retention?
No.
No wetlands.
No.
It's wetlands back there.
Sir, please.
No, they have not provided any comments for stormwater at this point. Typically, that's something that's done farther along in the engineering review stage.
Yeah, I know that it's underground. What I have concern with is that the part of the lines that's running underground is approximately 10 or 15 feet from the southern edge.
Mm-hmm.
And on the southern property line, there are some very nice pine trees. They're 15, 16-inch diameter. Maples. There's a series of those, and I know that those would be destroyed if, in fact, that occurred. So I'm a little bit concerned about the engineering on that. Maybe I should be addressing the engineer on that. Chairman, should I be?
If you have a question for
him, yeah, maybe I should. Yeah. Do you know where I'm talking about, or do you follow what I'm referring to?
Yes, on the southern side where we have the connection going from the underground detention to Stevenson Highway.
Right.
I would have to look at the topographic survey. I don't remember there being 15 to 16-inch maples along there. But,
yeah, there's a series of trees there. There's more than just that.
I know, yeah, there is a whole string of trees, and those would have to be removed.
Well, I viewed it. I went out there and I looked at the site. And I'd be concerned about your actually destroying them, because obviously you're very close to the root line there.
Yeah,
They're a good size, so, right now, that's not the issue here, so that's an engineering point, so I really shouldn't get involved in it. I'm just concerned about that.
Yeah, and if I can, we obviously would be working with engineering in the future to alleviate any issues. Right now, they do have.
Just caution you, don't destroy the neighbor as well. Maybe the architect should actually review that as well, making sure that happens.
Mr. Shepke.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of comments here tonight. Some, whether they're exaggerated or not, they're real, and people have real concerns for not only the place that they've chosen to call home, but also for their future tax values of their property. I think as residents, I've been in Troy a very long time, well over 44 years, so I can understand your concerns. I think that as far as hotels go, these are probably the softest or the best clients you're ever going to pull in a hotel. I've stayed in these facilities myself when I visited my son out in Portland, Oregon, because you don't have to have housekeeping every day. You can have housekeeping when you want housekeeping. So this makes the rates a lot cheaper. It's also, we had a friend that they had some extreme water damage when they were away on vacation. A water line blew and it just ruined all the floors in their home. And they also stayed in the Marriott long-term facility over on Stevenson Highway for quite a few weeks. So you are going to get a whole lot better clients, especially with no serving alcohol and other things that would cause rowdiness and probably some of the associated problems with that. It's really hard for me, even knowing a lot of these things, because I can feel a lot of your pain, and there's a lot of things that I feel very strongly about. First of all, the petitioner has his rights, and that's the reason we're up here tonight, is to make sure that he has justice here tonight. We are a recommending body. We are not a body that makes the rules and regulations, because we are not elected officials. We're appointed officials up here. We do the best we can to sort through the mess. It's hard for me as a commissioner to come up and vote against so many good people that I've seen come up here tonight. And I think some of the concerns you have are maybe an overreaction, but there's still a real concern to you, and that's all that's important. I hope that tonight, regardless of whether this vote goes up or this vote goes down, that you'll continue to stay active and pressure the people that you've elected and their appointees to give you justice, because if you don't stick up for yourself, nobody else will. And it really makes me feel good to see so many people come out and express their opinions, and bless you all for it. So we'll try to come up with a decent ruling tonight and for everybody, but we hear your concerns, and if this did happen to go against you tonight, please express your concern to your city council. These people will be influenced by your coming out and speaking your mind more than you'll ever know. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Any other comments? Mr. Edmonds.
Well, I still haven't made up my mind on this yet. I do, from what we learned at previous meetings with regard to the wall, that it's really the wall that provides the sound barrier and not the trees. So trees provide visual restrictions, but not sound. And if the petitioner has offered to do an 8-foot wall, I think that would be very appropriate for this project. The other thing is, we also learned at one of our other meetings when we did I think it was the church, that they can put a wall in without putting it in a straight. I think it's called a pylon type of wall, where you don't have solid concrete going through the ground, and you can vary the height of the wall itself depending on the terrain. So I think that's a really good idea. I still would like to hear what other commissioners have to say about the project. In terms of, I will say this, we get many projects where people who live on the edges of residential developments, and our ordinances are structured to try to protect them as much as possible. That was one of the things when we moved into Troy, one of the precepts that I always had. I never would buy a house on the edge of a subdivision, because you cannot control what's going to go in there. And developers they have rights too. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a few comments as well. I really appreciate all the comments from the citizens. Absent those opinions, this would have been a whole lot different decision for us. To know how it feels and to see it right from that neighborhood, and to get a feel for the neighborhood and all of your neighbors. It sounds like a great neighborhood. So appreciate you coming together, rallying, and bringing it forward. And it definitely impacts my opinion on this matter. I'm not sure what the outcome is going to be yet, but I take it to heart as well. And I do like a lot of the accommodations that they have made on their side as well. They aren't offering any alcohol or even banquet facilities that could bring excess partying involved. So, they've done a lot with landscaping as well. So I like that they're bringing that forward. I don't like the density, being that it abuts the residential area. 2 buildings, 4 stories, almost the full width of that lot. That is pretty overwhelming. And if you live right next to that, that would be a challenge to overcome. And understand that's why a lot of these residents are here today. That's all I have for now.
Thank you. Mr. Kren.
Yeah. I think if we drill down to the key item that's going to make a decision one way or another, we look at our standards. Real quickly, it says the zoning ordinance identifies 5 findings that the Planning Commission should evaluate when considering a conditional rezoning petition. A conditional rezoning may only be approved upon a finding and determination that all of the following are satisfied. And then they have 5 reasons, A through E. And I'm just going to focus on E because that's the one that seems to be the most important for the audience at this point. It says the conditions, proposed development, and/or proposed use shall ensure compatibility with adjacent uses of land. So will this be compatible with the adjacent uses? That's my dilemma. That's where I'm sitting. I can appreciate both sides of this argument, truthfully. I've looked very carefully at what the developer has done, and I'm trying to envision what the impact to the residents will be if this development goes forward. It's really a tug of war. I see that the plantings will take about 20 years before the 5th story or the 4th story is completely invisible from the first row of residents. Then I look at other areas in Troy. What about all the residents that have apartments on the south side of the Somerset Collection? Can they see the Somerset Collection? Oh, sure, they sure can. They're right across the street from it. There's no berm between the Somerset Collection and all those apartments. I realize when those apartments were built, and and they're not homeowners, that they knew they were moving into an area that would overlook that development. Then I also look at how will this impact the day-to-day goings-on in your neighborhood. Like, okay, generally hotels are empty during the daytime, so you're really not going to hear or see a lot of activity like you would have from an office building. The office buildings that could be built on this site could come very close to your homes without going through us at all. In other words, it's completely within their rights under our zoning to build a building. I can't remember the amount of feet, but I think it's 60 feet. 50, is it? Anyway, the point I'm getting at is a lot of things could happen to this site that would negatively impact your neighborhood that are allowed. So then I weigh, is this going to be less of an impact? Well, there's going to be, like, it's going to be, they're going to be there at night. Most people sleep at night. I don't think there's going to be a major noise impact. There's not going to be a restaurant on the site. There's not going to be a bar on the site. It's not going to attract the nightlife. It's a sleeping zone. So it seems to be quiet in the day. Sounds reasonably quiet at night. I mean, it's a tough battle. I don't really have an answer right now to just spew forward and say, here's the solution. But I'm weighing all those elements. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Strand.
Yeah, I also am on the borderline, and I certainly am sympathetic to the comments that were made, and I'm taking it to heart. But also I'm looking at what is best for the city of Troy as well. So we have to look at it from both angles, not just from a particular one-sided. So it's kind of very difficult right now. For me it is anyway, right at this point. So I'm on the fence. I'm not sure what the rest of the commissioners are going to do, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do on this. But I just wanted to give you my appreciation of what you have done and what you have said. We're listening to you. It's not like we're not, regardless of which way this goes. Thank you.
Thanks. It's been a while. Can you tell us what your recommendation was, Ben, as far as there are a number of site planning issues that need to be addressed, and
because the condition offered by the applicant was a site plan, and there are so many outstanding site plan issues still hanging, our recommendation is that the matter be postponed for the applicant to address these site plan issues and submit a revised site plan back to the Planning Commission.
Yes, Mr. Edmonds.
Can I ask a question? Since the petitioner has offered the 8-foot wall, what does that do to the sight line with relationship to the, because wasn't that done at a 6-foot height before?
I'll let the applicant address that. I don't think the 8-foot wall, from going from a 6 to 8-foot wall, does much for the sight line issue. The purpose of the 8-foot wall was really a noise barrier and a sound barrier because, like you stated earlier, landscaping does not do much for noise, but a sound wall is much more effective for noise screening.
Yeah, I think Ben's absolutely correct that really it's the trees that are going to affect that sight line the most. Between the 6-foot and an 8-foot wall, it's not going to. The trees are much higher and are going to make a much greater impact. And if I can throw out there that some comments have been made about like the second or third tier as we move farther and farther away. If there were no trees or no other houses in the way, then yes, you would see farther. But as you move across the street, there's trees that line the street and there's trees in those backyards. So as you move farther and farther away, you really won't see more. But we are definitely willing to work with the planning staff as much as possible to keep this moving forward.
Thanks. Yes, Mr. Schultz.
Since I know where all my fellow planning commissioners live, I can probably sympathize with these people more than anybody on this dais. Because the condominiums I live in, when they were built, was on a 2-lane road that was zoned residential. and 1/2 mile of the mile-long road was built on one side, and it's residential. All the rest of the property on the entire north side for a mile and on the south side for a 1/2 mile was rezoned commercial. And the 2-lane road that our residential development was built on turned into a 4-lane road with a boulevard. And I now have a 5-story hotel directly across the street from my condominium complex. So I probably sympathize with you more than anybody up here. I will tell you that life as you know it would not end if this development were built. I'm still on the fence as to whether it's going to happen. My biggest concern right now is if the engineering department and road commission for Oakland County says that the ingress and egress is not workable, we can't do anything until this petitioner comes back and tells us whether they can make the ingress and egress compatible with RCOC and the city engineering department.
Thank you.
Mr.
Hudson.
I've been silent. I've been listening to all of this. I see both sides, but I can tell you that I think it should be adjourned to give us the time to address some of these questions which have been raised. But I can further tell you, I'm not in the fence. If these issues can all be addressed satisfactorily, I'm going to vote for it. It may be tough. I think it's good for the city of Troy. I think it's well placed under the zoning. And I understand that there's a little pain involved here, but as Mr. Schultz says, things always change, and you can't stop progress. And I would like to propose a resolution.
Go ahead.
Resolved that the Planning Commission hereby postpones this item to provide the applicant an opportunity to address issues identified in the Planning Commission report dated August 15th, 2013.
I'll second.
Support. We need a date certain.
I'm sorry.
We need a date certain.
Date certain.
Yes.
Yes.
Date certain. Postpone date certain.
What should that be in the motion?
Yes.
What's the date?
I don't want to speak for you, Sue.
It should be because, so the public knows when to come back, because we don't necessarily have to resend notices. So whatever you think, next meeting or the meeting after next?
It's up to them.
Yeah, it's up to you. What would you need to, you want, our next meeting is in 2 weeks, is that right?
Our next meeting will be the second Tuesday of September.
Okay. Or the 4th Tuesday.
Never have a calendar.
If the applicant is planning on making substantial changes to site plan in the submittal packet, as well as review by the engineering department, we're going to need more than 2 weeks from today for that meeting. So I would, at a minimum, recommend at least a month.
What would that be?
We're going to, for some reason, we never have a calendar when it comes to these, but we do have iPhones, so he's going to get you a date.
How about the regular meeting in October?
Let's get
That would be 6 weeks.
We'll get you a date on that. You should have a date, an actual date in the minutes or in the resolution.
24th, the next regular meeting? Next month?
No, that's the next study session. The next regular meeting's into second Tuesday.
The next regular October meeting is October 8th.
Recommend we amend the motion of the resolution to October 8th.
Who seconded that?
No, the consultant said that October 8th does not give them time to do an engineering review. They need 30 days.
What he said it was.
Today's August, right? We're in August, right? Yeah, that gives me...
October.
Yeah, that gives me...
I'm sorry,
that's plenty of time. If you can get it to us at least 2 weeks prior to that October 8th date. Okay.
I'm thinking it's September already.
Who seconded that? Mr. Edmonds, and you'll second with the amended date?
October 8th, yes.
Okay. We're ready.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Shepke?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Stratt?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Kempen?
Yes.
Can we take 5 minutes, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
we absolutely can. Thank you all for coming. Moving on to our study item, item 9. This is a potential planned unit development, a PUD. It's a proposed mixed-use PUD project northeast corner of Crooks Road and I-75, 5498 through 5500 Crooks, section presently zoned OM, office mixed use. Is that Mr. Carlisle who's leaving the room? No.
I can do it.
Thank you.
This is, you'll recall this is the fourth Tuesday of the month, so it's really a study session.
It is.
But because of the, we anticipated a large crowd this evening, we shifted over here. So when we scheduled this, I explained to these gentlemen that study session is more of kind of a roll up your sleeves, sit around a table, more informal. And we're not quite there tonight, but so I apologize for that. But it's still a study meeting. So we were approached by the owner of the Met Hotel, and he's interested in renovating the hotel, doing some interior and exterior renovations to the hotel, and also contemplating mixed-use development on the property. It's 17.4 acres. It's presently zoned OM, office mixed use, but they're contemplating, again, a mixed-use development. Fronting on Crooks Road would include retail on the main floor and office, residential, hotel above, any combination thereof. They're not, they don't have the details ironed out yet, but what, I've got the aerial up on the screen. You've all got this in your packet. So you've got a aerial of the site. Clearly the hotel is to the east, and there's a lot of parking that's potentially reused for development on the frontage. And the applicant provided a very kind of a conceptual site plan, and then a number of really cool, that's a planning term, cool renderings.
Technical planning term.
Yeah, technical term, exactly. So I'll let Jason take over, and I'm just kind of setting the table. So basically the gist of this is they're kind of kicking the tires on a potential planned unit development, and they're here to see what you think. And with that being said, let these gentlemen introduce themselves, and away we go.
Well, I want to thank you for your patience as well.
Oh, very well. Thank you. And by the way, we already have the hotel. Thank you for the zoning. My name is Remo Polselli. I've been in the hotel business for 22 years. I currently live in California, and I flew back for this. I also have a home here in Michigan, too, and I'm a Michigan native. Went to Notre Dame High School in Harper Woods, was brought up in Michigan. Long and short, I am the third owner of this property. I don't know if many people know it was called the Northfield. It was called the Northfield Hilton. It was originally built by Chrysler Corporation. That's why it's in the C form. It was originally built with 763 parking spaces because there was supposed to have been a tower in front. So they built 190 rooms, put the 15,000 square feet of convention space, largest in the city of Troy. Was supposed to build a tower. That's the same time Chrysler was doing the Wabeek development in West Bloomfield, and Chrysler was going to go into all kinds of real estate actors and decided, you know what, let's get back to doing cars, and then they went BK. Long and short, a second owner was Logan, which was a public company. They had taken the property from a Hilton, made it into a Ramada. They ran it for a Hilton for years, and they made it to a Ramada, and I acquired it approximately 4.5 years ago. When I acquired it, I immediately was approached by a couple people that wanted to buy some of the front parcels to put strip center in. One of the buyers actually went under contract to buy the whole piece. Unfortunately, it did not come to fruition because the economy wasn't there and the financing wasn't there. That being said, my wife was in town and met with Brent, and he was cordial because she called him up as she got off the plane and said, I want to come see you. She goes, for what? For what? What'd I do? Long and short, she said, we have 17 acres, it's a frickin' parking lot with a hotel in the back, and we need to do something. What do you suggest? And Brent was very cordial and said, we'd like to see a mixed use. We don't just want to see another strip center like what's across the street. We'd like to see something where it's 2 to 3 levels. It'd be great if you could have put apartments there. It'd be great if you could put some kind of residential there, and it would revitalize the whole area. I was very fortunate. I was going to retain an architect out of California. Somebody suggested I contact Jason out of Royal Oak. This is emulated off a project called The Grove. The Grove is in Los Angeles. It is right next to the Fox Studios. It's a phenomenal development. And Mr. Caruso, who did that development, has won all kinds of accolades, and it was basically a piece of dirt run down, Thomas, you're familiar with it. Long and short, I can tell you what happened here. This is going to be called LA Square, Lifestyle with an Attitude. LA Square is coming to Troy, Michigan. It's a one of a kind. The goal here, and Jason will take it from there, is to build a development here, high end. This is not going to be low end. This is going to be high end. Not high end with Gucci or stuff like that, but this is going to be what Kmart, I thought was going to happen one day at Kmart. It never happened. This is a development, though. The one thing that I have, the most difficult thing, I'm in the hotel business, is hotels. This hotel would run about $35 million to build. It does have a restaurant. I will give you guys some scoop. Epicurean Group has taken over Charlie's Crab. Epicurean has taken Northern Seafood, which is over at the Radisson in Bloomfield Hills, and will be opening sometime in November at this location. They're in the middle of remodeling it. Unique Deli, which is going to be called Epic Cafe, is taking over the restaurant inside the hotel. Those two announcements you'll be foreseen within the next 2 to 3 weeks in the papers, but we've already signed a lease. I'm bringing business back to this area. Since the Palms closed down and now we have Luciano's there at the Italian restaurant, other than that, the area is dead at night. If you go up Crooks Road, there's nothing there at night. So I want to create this thing called LA Square, and what LA Square is a place where you have restaurants, where you have entertainment, where you have Pinkberry, you have Five Guy Burgers, but you also have a studio with an LA, we're going to call the LA Yoga studio, a dance studio that's going to be on the second floor. It's going to be a place where nobody around here has it, and it's going to be something where you can stay at the hotel, you can go there and park, plenty of restaurants. All those office buildings right now, they're tired of going to Red Robin and going to Kirby's Coney Island for lunch. You can do it. So what they do is they all drive down a 16-mile road. I see it because I do it when I'm in town. I go down a 16-mile for the restaurants and then head back. This is going to give people an alternative. The great news, and I'll take it to Jason, we have a highway behind us, so they're not going to complain about any noise. We have Crooks Road, they're not going to complain any noise. I don't need trees because the neighbors are so far away. Okay, the bottom line is we're there right now and it's dead. We want to bring life to it. The one more thing I can tell you, in all honesty, this is beyond a fact of just an idea and a dream. The property literally was paid for and there was no debt on it. When I met with Brent and Ben that same day, I got my initial loan. We paid off the taxes. We paid 2 years' taxes. We went ahead, have initial loan to develop the property. There is little debt on the property. So what I'm telling you is very openly, there's less than $2 million debt on the entire piece of property. This project is going to be financed with cash. It doesn't need any money. We believe in it. We believe in the city. We believe in the development. So this is something you're not just hearing about and the guy's going to disappear in the limelight and never see again. We want it to happen, but we want it with your blessing. We want you in the community to be part of this and be proud of it. And for that, I'll give you Jason. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Jason Krieger with Krieger-Klett Architects from Royal Oaks, 1412 East 11 Mile Road. And what I'd like to do, I guess, is I'll just walk you through the site. Again, we saw this as something informal, so I don't have a formal presentation to give to you guys. When we met with staff, the initial thing was we saw that there may be a bit of complication or a struggle with regards to the zoning on our end because it may limit what could go into the site. That's why we're proposing or hoping to do the PUD, because with that we create the agreement, and then it really opens up the flexibility for us to bring different tenants in. And it won't hinder that site in the future, and let it kind of evolve as time goes and let it become what it really wants to be, which is a true mixed-use development. So as Remo mentioned, or maybe Brent mentioned it, the first floor is really intended to be retail. The second floor could be retail or office. Then the third floor is going to be residential or extended stay, some extension of the hotel possibly. A lot of these things are open-ended for the time being. Our curb cut along Crooks is proposing to stay, okay? It just so happens that the site lays out in a way that it just kind of works for this development. So I know that this may be hard for everybody to see, but this right here is Crooks Road, and the existing curb cut is right here. And our proposal is to keep the existing boulevard going in towards the hotel, and then simply do the buildings on the right and on the left. We would obviously spruce up this boulevard, improve everything, and make it just a wonderful environment, and hopefully create more of a walking community in here. So if you were to stay at the hotel, this becomes a destination where you could stay and eat and dine and actually entertain here and shop. We would use as much on-site parking as possible. We have not done a parking count yet. What we're going to have to do is go through all of that, work with staff. We spoke briefly about that, but we just haven't gotten to that point yet. We picture adding a deck if we have to. Hopefully it's just a one-level lift type deck, but again, we'll have to figure that out as we go. In this courtyard here, in the hotel, and Remo can speak more about this, our goal there is to use that and make it exciting. Right now, it's what would be considered almost just it's empty space. So we have concepts where it can be called fire and ice, so that in the summertime, it's a wonderful, like a fire pit or a gathering place, a place where people can sit out here at the hotel. These are all rooms that look out over onto it. In the wintertime, it can be used for pond hockey or other sports or events that can bring people there. The idea is to try and make this a year-round event and make it exciting and make it, family-friendly, obviously, too. This is intended to be for all ages. So there could be maybe a small band or somebody playing. So, this strengthens the hotel and strengthens the development. That's really the concept of what we're looking at here. The design of the buildings are more on the modern or contemporary side. The idea is to make it edgy, to make it exciting, to make it today, but also for the future. We want to keep them, this is all big picture conceptual stuff right now, but the idea is to make them simple enough that as time goes on, they can evolve with the different uses that go in there through signage, or maybe they add awnings and do things. It's really hard to create a downtown setting from scratch nowadays because those things have to evolve. So the intent here is to start with something really basic and clean and simple and let it do what it wants to do and grow. We're also looking at doing this in a way where maybe there's a huge retention pond off to the south end of the site. Maybe in the future we turn that into underground detention, that evolves. So we're trying to do this in a way that becomes this thing that can grow over time. And I think that, and then also the hotel itself is going to get remodeled. This is just a concept rendering for the lobby. And again, Remo can speak about this better than I can, but the idea is that it's Allure Hotel, so it's going to be, hip, fun, exciting, and bring in a higher-end clientele is what the goal is.
The hotel is currently being called the Met. It's going to be going through a name change. It's going to be called the Allure Hotel. And allure means to attract. And what we were saying here is that this is the amphitheater that we had talked about this a couple of years ago, but it was never presented. It could hold about 300 to 500 people. On a Friday and Saturday night, we will have two-man bands performances here, where people can literally sit here. 100 rooms, literally 100 rooms will oversee it, but also people can come here, Valet Park, and have outdoor concerts. We're also talking about doing Saturday markets. We're also doing like last week with the Woodward Cruise. The whole town, this whole LA Square would have been all themed after Woodward Cruise. We're talking about doing a Christmas tree here every year that you have the annual Christmas tree lighting. It's going to be a little center, a new little downtown, not to take away from Troy's downtown, but a little downtown there where people can stay at the hotel, can do things. And meanwhile, we have free shuttle where we take your shuttle to Somerset, we'll take your shuttle over to anywhere you want to go, because basically within 10 to 15 minutes I could take you to the Palace, I could take you to Great Lakes Crossing, or I could take you to Somerset. And when somebody comes here, they'll have a reason to stay here. We are the largest conference center in the city of Troy. We are the only hotel that can offer this in the city of Troy. If you're looking for meeting space, all you have is the Marriott and you have the Somerset Inn that has meeting space. Every one of those, if you want to go eat, if you're staying there tonight, listen, by the time you get out here, it'll be 10 o'clock. You go back to your hotel room, you want to go eat, there's nowhere to go. You've got to get in a car if you're one of these hotels. I guess Drury, you can go to Fridays. Or Marriott, you can jump the street and hope you don't get hit and go to Champs. But there's nowhere else to go. This would be a great place. You go back to your room at 10 o'clock after you're done with your meeting, and there's still restaurants and bars on the strip that so it's from a brochure that'll be open maybe until midnight, 1 o'clock. It is for kids because what Jason didn't tell you is in the wintertime we're looking at putting a hockey rink out here in the courtyard, and that's where the ice comes in. It'll be a skating rink because we get a lot of hockey teams there, like basically 4 4 weeks of the year we get hockey teams that go to hockey tournaments. By having an ice skating rink, we hope to get more of their business. They would basically, it'd be free skating, but then they go ahead and we take it to the tournament. It's going to be a place where people are going to be proud of, and we wanted to make it a monument, something that's special. And again, we wanted this to happen. We wanted to make it real. And with the approvals of everybody, we feel it's going to take 6 to 8 months for timeline, that we hopefully could break ground by next summer and then be open within 12 months after that. Concrete, construction-wise, Jason has already talked about doing prefab where basically the buildings go up quickly. And one last thing, the top floor will either be 45 luxury apartments, 900 square foot apartments, but our goal really would be is 45 long-term suites. Right now, the Townsend has about a dozen of them, and they're constantly, about 6 of them, I'm sorry, and they're constantly sold out where people need them for a month at a time. We would like to do that. I mean, we get special people at the hotel. Nobody knows about it. They like us quiet. And again, I can say it now because the album just came out last night. Eminem stayed there for a week, okay, just recently, before their album was released. They took the entire ballroom, and that's where they cut their album. Their album just came out. Nobody knows that. Why he likes it? Because he could park behind the property. Nobody would know him. He used to go to the Townsend all the time. Now he comes with us. I'm throwing names out there because there is a need for this. And a hotel exists, so we don't have to build it. And the hotel itself has been the hardest thing to do in this development. Long and short, this is our short presentation. Answer any questions, and we're open to any ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Hudson.
Mr. Boselli, Jason, when I first saw this in our package, I fell in love with it. The architecture flows beautifully with that curved sea there. You've got the open arena. I like the mixed use. The buildings look good. The only thing I'd be a little hesitant on is that I've been bitten before. When we see these beautiful presentations and graphics, some of them aren't done to scale, and when it comes to fruition, the original concept we shown got transformed into something that I wasn't too crazy about. But nevertheless, I trust you. I like your enthusiasm. I think maybe one of the things you might want to consider adding to this project,
please,
is some public art.
I can't believe you said that. The second floor, I would like to make an art gallery or art studio and have art throughout the property. I'd like to have music and people could put their art, absolutely. I don't think they did in downtown Birmingham. I just saw it. I was down there yesterday.
And I can remember as a kid in college, Detroit Symphony would be at the fairgrounds in the Symphony Bowl down there, and we'd go out on a summer night and listening to Beethoven and Stan Kenton. It was wonderful. I hope this comes to fruition because this looks like a dream.
It's 150,000 square feet. I'm throwing numbers at you. It's only $20 million development, and that's not expensive. Because remember, I build this shell, and the people take the restaurant. Like if a BW3s comes in there, Buffalo Wild Wings, they would take the shell and they do their own build out. So it's not going to be that, and it will come to fruition, Michael, and I appreciate it. I think that's a great idea, putting art, because people have their own stuff on exhibit.
It's walkable, and that's what this whole zoning and master plan's about, making it walkable again, and this certainly promotes it.
Well, Michael, you know one more thing, and everybody here? How do you get there? You get off of Crooks Road. You know, when you get off of Crooks Road, I don't care if you're going north and south, there's only one exit. It really comes in like this. So when you get off of Crooks, all you say, get off of Crooks, make a right, you're right there. So traffic flow, I'm in and out with no problem. And that makes it easy. I don't bother nobody. We are going to get a traffic study. I know, Ben, you suggested that. We're getting a traffic study, but I'm telling you, it's a great location, easy to find. And candidly, I'd like to get more of the crowd from the north than the south, and I'll say that candidly. And this is great if you live in Auburn Hills, Rochester Hills. Instead of driving 2.5 more miles to get to Big Beaver, let's stop over at LA Square, see what's going on before we hit the strip on Big Beaver. And nothing against Big Beaver. You know, Mike Kuza, I sold him 3 properties. He's building 2 hotels. None of them have a convention space. You can't have a wedding at his hotel. You can't have a meeting there. I mean, we had AA took the entire hotel. Not to be proud we have AA, but they took the entire hotel. We can handle it. We can hold 1,000 people here. So, but I love your idea. Thank you, Michael.
Mr. Schultz.
As a frequent visitor to the Grove,
okay.
The only issue, I love the concept. The only thing I see that isn't as Grove-like as I would like, Grove did a very, very good job of seeing that all their parking was on the perimeter because the entire interior space is pedestrian. They don't have their main entrance running right down the middle of their retail space.
No, you're right. They run them down to one side, and you have that valet park, and it's a spectacular.
Valet park or structure park, either
Yeah.
one. But once you park your car, you don't have to worry about whether you're going to step off the street and get hit by a car coming in off Crooks Road.
Robert, that's a great idea. You're absolutely correct.
So I would
Close off the street.
I would suggest you might look at rerouting your main entrance so that the area between your retail space is pedestrian instead of
Yeah, because you close off the street,
vehicular.
you leave it out there, but it's a boulevard where people walk, and literally you have people walking, and you have to, then you can have kiosks out there in the summertime, because that's what they have at the Grove. You have the kiosks that go in the summertime. That's a great
They
idea.
also have LA Farmers Market, which
Yes, isn't that
very
amazing?
hard to duplicate.
And you know there's never a vacancy there? And you know what? I'm not going to say nothing here, but there's a chance of doing a reality show here too that could be filmed here. But I like your idea. We have to definitely look at that because we're not giving up any parking spaces here. And if people park in the back, what happens to them? Park in back. I like that. Thank you, Robert.
Yes, Mr. Stratton.
Yeah, I'm just curious, are you planning on, you said you wanted to actually have it completed by next year,
No, 2015.
2015? Are you going to do it in phases, or is
No.
this all going to be one shot?
One shot.
Really?
Yeah. This is not a dream, it's a reality. By that I'm saying, we don't have debt on the property. It's, you know, all I need is 2-3 tenants, anchor tenants. We had a press release that I apologize to the people that read about it. I put it out there just about 2 months ago. We've got a major press release that's going out. It made the Wall Street Journal. As soon as it hits the press, we already got calls off the one press release. There's nothing like it around here. There's nothing in this town that they ever did it. Partridge Creek is gorgeous, but there's no hotel there. Okay, nobody's done it. But I love your idea of closing the street off because, you know, that gives me, pedestrians can go down there and you can, and I like that. And then just park around back. I didn't think about that.
Mr. Shipke?
Yes, I love it. You know, I live not too far away from there, and I remember when it was in its heyday right now, when Charlie's Crab was in there and the hotel was booming. And I've been there to business meetings and conferences, and it was just, and to see it go downhill the way it has, and I've just been hoping that somebody would come along and develop it, because I agree with you, it could be a jewel. It could be a great draw for this city, and it could be another Somerset or better. So I think that the concept you have is a great one, and it's in its own way, it's quaint, even though it's very futuristic, and I love the walkability. I just think it's going to be a great draw for businesses to come into this community for conferences. I think it's going to be a jewel for the city, and I applaud you for coming up with this concept.
Thank you, Gordon. It wasn't me, I'm copying other people, but I'm copying something that was successful. And like Robert said, he went to the Grove. If you go to the Grove, it's packed. Every weekend it is packed. And that's what I hope to have here. I mean, what is there to do tonight? I'm in town. You know what? Instead of going to Birmingham, people go to Birmingham, and I've got nothing against Birmingham. It's beautiful, but it's same old, same old. This will be different.
Yes, Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah, I just wanted to applaud you on this, the whole concept. It's not only covers economic viability, which is important, because we've seen the horrible impact when big projects fail, going through the recession recently. But this is going to revitalize, so we don't need a brownfield project in order to back this thing. You're going to raise the parking lot and put in this development, which should attract more people, and that should also restore the efficacy of the hotel itself. So that's great. It really does a lot of those things that we're looking for to kind of, you know, it's a real destination instead of a sleeping
right
place.
now, the first thing that stares you is a fireman sign, building for sale or lease. And then you look around and there's all these empty buildings.
Yeah.
They were full 10 years ago. Matter of fact, I almost tried to buy a building on King Street that my wife glad I didn't buy it because I fell in love with the building. It was only half occupied. I said, I'm sure we can fill it. Long and short, this will help revitalize some of that. And I got to tell you one more thing in all craziness, not to bring religion. God put me in touch with Jason. Jason is the one that drew this up. I told him over the phone, I was 2,500 miles away, and I said, listen to Grove. I sent him pictures of the Grove. I sent him pictures of the development. I said, Jason, this is what I'm trying to develop. And he drew it up. And to him, I give credit, and it's been gelling, and it's been building up. And literally, we've been working this about 6 months behind the scenes. It's coming together. I love the idea of closing the street, Robert, it's great. I love the idea of we could put art all along the street then, with private art. I like it, I love it. And it's someplace that I'd go. And I think everybody here would go, and everybody would check it out. And as long as you have a great experience, you'll come back and tell others. And that's what it's all about.
One additional thought I have that just came to mind, I'm not sure why, but if we could make some sort of a landmark place, because, I mean, you got the freeway going right by, and as you're driving by, you might miss it. But, you know, I think that if there's some ideas that you might have that might make it more of a landmark location to really put this on the map.
Like a large electronic sign? No?
Vertical.
We don't like those on the planning commission. But
I didn't like it either.
An art piece.
My idea. Put it right on I-75.
Mr. Schultz, did you have a comment?
Yeah, the only other thing, talking about public art, if it turns out that you can't move your main boulevard, you've probably seen it, but I would suggest you take a look at El Paseo in Palm Desert, California, because they have dozens of pieces of gorgeous art in a boulevard that's probably not more than 10 or 12 feet wide down the middle of El Paseo.
El Paseo.
El Paseo in Palm Desert, California. It is the Somerset collection of Palm Desert, but they're all outside because it never rains.
Yeah.
Or snows.
But it's sad, 6 months of the year, Robert, it's dead there. All the stuff is laying there, and you drive around, it's like a desert town. Well, it is a desert town.
Well, it is a desert town, that's why.
Well, I think, do you have anything, Kyle?
I just want to make a quick comment. Yes, it's refreshing breath of fresh air. I mean, just really, really nice to see. I mean, as I travel around the country, I look at other things I've been to Dubai and said, why don't we have something like, you know, that exciting here? And thank you for bringing this here.
It's small time. This is not big.
I know.
It's only 17 acres.
I understand.
So it is not the size of some other ones, but
It has the essence of that level of quality. The couple of things that are key that I think are very important for community building are the elements you brought in. You're talking about a hockey rink or ice skating rink. I think the farmer's market is, we've had, not on this, from this commission, but other boards I've been on, a lot of requests from the community. We need a farmer's market, you know, and that's just an excellent, I'm just glad what you're doing. You're creating a community magnet. And that's...
Imagine you checking in on Friday night, you don't know it's dark, like tonight. You check in. You wake up in the morning on a Saturday morning, you got a farmer's market going on, you got the restaurants here, you got LA Cafe, we already got LAcafe.com as one of my domains. You got LA Cafe, you come outside and have a cup of coffee, as you walk down the street, there's a Starbucks with a drive-through, and all of a sudden you say, whoa, where am I?
Where's the bagels?
You know, and what I want to be I will tell you one more thing. I'm going to do the same thing that Caruso did with the Grove. I want to be selective who my tenants are. I'm not going to put a shingle for lease. This is going to be where people are going to want to come. By that I'm saying the tenants are going to want to come, and I'm trying to be selective. I want it to be boutique, unique, fun. Music, there'll be music in the trees playing all the time. It'll be fun, it'll be vibrant. And the rooms rates will be $129, $180, so it'll be the same rates as Marriott, but you get a lot more. And I'm not knocking to Marriott, but I don't have to pay Marriott franchise fees, and this will be different because we're unique.
Last follow-up was the architectural facades.
Yes.
Really nice. The last, I already talked about the last, I don't know if you were, yeah, you were here. The other presentation at the Fairfield Inn looked really
You know why? I don't have any franchise. You know why? Because Marriott tells you that's what you got to do. What he didn't want to tell you, they say this is what it is, just like you said about the smoke glass windows.
Yeah.
They're so big, they're big, they say you can't do it. Okay? The reason I'm telling you I have no debt, not because I'm boasting, because if I had debt on this and I got to ask the bank for permission, I got to ask Mother, may I don't want to do that. Why do I want to make it a lure? Because this way I can be whatever I need to be. Yeah. Whatever the customer wants, I can be. And you know what? With Marriott, they're great products. They're so lame, they're same old, same old.
Well, I'm excited for you. I think
Thank you.
I'm excited for our city, too.
Thank you. And nobody has seen these except for the circle in here, so.
And everyone watching on television right now.
Oh, are they on?
Only another 40.
Well, tomorrow night, not right now.
Mr. Edmonds.
Yeah, it's really exciting. When I saw the architectural renderings, great job, Jason. It's really what we're looking for, and I am really pleased to hear that you're talking about 2 to 3 story development, something that we've had difficulty encouraging even on Big Beaver. So if this is anywhere near what you're saying, I really look forward, and I guess that's always the proof is in the pudding when we see the actual details and the drawings start to come in. That's what we need, but I think you're on the right track, and I really look forward to it.
Thank you.
Wow.
Well, you've gotten resounding support by everyone, myself included, and again, I echo the comments.
John, I want to say one more thing. See these apartments up here? They have balconies, so you can literally sit there, have a glass of wine with a glass, have a sit at a table, a glass of wine, as you watch everybody walking past you. There's no better feeling. And if I can get you a room there for $199 a night, why wouldn't you stay in that 600 square foot suite and stay there, have your own little kitchenette that might be full of food from either Papa Joe's or from Farmer's Market, and you can stay there for the week, and that would be a weekly or monthly stay. We're talking to people like Delphi, or we are going to approach people like Delphi, where they have their own suite. And with only 40 to 42 suites, I think it could be great as an extended stay hotel. One more thing, I will not dilute it. You have my word today. I will not dilute this. I know everybody says you start out big and all of a sudden, well, we're going to go 2 stories because we couldn't get enough tenancy for the 3 stories and we're only going to build 1 building at a time. No, it's got to be the whole thing. Okay? You've got to bake the whole cake. Okay? Even though there's only 6 of us here, by the time you bake this will be done. The thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run out of land, but I don't want it, I want it to be boutique, small, and special. And that's what Jason's going to do for me.
When do you think you'll be back in front of us?
Well, you guys got some great ideas. He's going to design a new thing without having a boulevard full of people instead of cars. And we can park around back. Yeah. Because the great thing about this site, I don't know if anybody sees the site. Oh, you got that picture, great. There's already a street. This property's ideal. You come down and you can go to one street. So we'll just have to run the traffic from the other street. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And that would be great. And then we do valet parking just like the Grove does. Have the valet parking. You should see the valet parking there's to die for.
It'd be nice to have it on both sides, parking on both sides.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Yes.
If you can accomplish that, that'd be great, I would think. But I like the walkability, and I like, there's a lot of stuff that's done with the tent awnings and stuff like that could be done inside as part of the activity and the ambiance that you're going to be trying to create. There's a lot of, this could be a real gem. I mean, I really think it could work out really well. I'm very excited over it. That walkability, that whole thing on inside is going to be the key, though. That inner pedestrian walkway.
Mr. Schultz.
Just one personal comment. Though it's had its ups and its downs, you and the city of Troy should say thank you to Chrysler Financial because they built an outstanding hotel.
Yes, we did.
When they originally built it. You don't need a gym because if you're in the north end of the building, you get your exercise just walking all the way around it to get to your room.
That's true. 50 to the lot.
But it is, I mean, I was young when Chrysler bought all that property, which was a long time ago, but I always thought it was interesting. Chrysler Financial's headquarters was on Crooks Road in Troy, Michigan. I was expecting them to come through with a renaming request, but they built an outstanding building. I mean, the rooms were far advanced for the day that they were built, with the little sliding walls in between the bathrooms and the rooms and everything. So we all need to thank Chrysler for doing a good job. Otherwise, that building would have fallen down years ago.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Sorry to keep you.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thanks.
So can I say one thing, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
It sounds like the next step may be to submit an application.
Yep.
Yes.
We had a very informal meeting a couple weeks ago.
We have to put a permitting. Can we just build it? Let's show you. It could be as-built.
Sure, build it out of styrofoam core board and show it to us.
Like the Fairfield? No, I'm just kidding.
So what I suggest is having a pre-application meeting, circling back, and we'll meet with myself and Ben and some other people, and we'll kickstart this thing, get it going.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, man.
All right, item number 10. Anyone in the public want to make a comment? I think not. Let's go around the table with Planning Commission comments, and we'll start with Ms. Lancaster.
Nothing tonight. Everybody did a good job with that big meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nice job, nicely done.
Mr. Savina?
So far, I've got 3 people interested in going to, so show of hands, who wants to go to the MAP conference? Michigan Association of, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, and one going like this, so 4.5.
Sure.
Okay. So I'll be contacting you via email tomorrow or the next day, clarifying some paperwork and some loose ends. Okay? Thank you.
Mr. Hudson?
We approved and 7-Eleven built a new store at Crooks and Wattles. I got a lot of feedback from neighbors around there. They didn't think that was right to have a 7-Eleven at that intersection, yakety-yak. But I want to tell you that I drive that Wattles Road intersection about twice a day. And I've been seeing people congregating there and talking, and people are in the parking lot. And it's going to get better, I think, as time goes on. It's a convenience, it's promoting walkability, just everything we wanted to do with these economic and residential nodes. And I am really proud that we got that through, in spite of, I think, some of the neighbors being upset, but I think they'll come around. It's a nice building, and it's working.
Thank you. Mr. Grant, nothing? Mr. Campbell? Nothing?
Today.
Mr. Stratt?
Now that you brought that up, you know, there's a sign on the front door that faces the street, go around the back. You know, you know, you see all the churches that have front doors, but the parking is in the back, no one goes in the front door. That's the same thing. But one of the pet things that I'm looking at right now is, and I'm not going to bring it up, but is the signage. And I know that, you know, there are priorities, but I'll tell you, we've got to get at this signage thing. That should be really put up to the priority, in my opinion, because right now there's also signage on a backside, and there's all glass around the outside. I'll bet you dollars to donuts there's going to be signage on those glasses pretty darn quick, because you look at the 7-Eleven just south of there, just south of Big Beaver, and it's nothing but another advertising. And to me, there's no question in my mind, the culture of the city is reflected by its signage as well. And that's really the, you know, very important to it. You know, I've been preaching that, and I've been asking for that for several years, but I really think that, and also, you know, these flashing signs, I mean, we shouldn't have them. They should be outlawed. I mean, just because the technology is there doesn't mean we have to accept everything all the time. That's not a part of technology as far as I'm concerned. We're not going to be New York. I'm sorry. I don't mean, I'll get off my soapbox.
Thank you, Mr. Stratt. Mr. Schultz.
In simple terms, I agree with you.
Wow.
Because I contacted Mr. Evans about the gas station, I don't know what brand it is, at Maple and Stevenson. And they had so many of the neon flashing signs that the only description I could have for the building was it looked like they were having fireworks going off. Yep. I mean, the open sign from Costco was flashing, and the lottery sign was flashing, and the Camel cigarette sign was flashing, and the Budweiser sign was flashing, and I'm going, we got to find a way to get it under control. And I realize those signs are inside the building, but we have to find a way to control them too, or they're just going to fill the windows with neon because they can get away with it. And it's very distracting and very unattractive, at least in one person's opinion.
Thank you. Mr. Shepke.
Yes, I agree on the signage, and I agree on the 7-Eleven. I think that's a nice addition to the neighborhood. There used to be a house there that had a bunch of students in it and cars parked around, and it wasn't kept up, and it was just deteriorating greatly over the last few years. So it's nice to see something there that has a walkable scenario. And as far as the signs go, no decision is a decision, and the longer we put off a decision on tackling this problem and grabbing the bull by the horns, it's just going to increase and increase, and it's going to be to the detriment of Troy. So I think signage is something that we have to get very, very serious about, and we have to allot, if we have to, some special session meetings on grabbing hold of this and preserving our city.
Thank you. Mr. Edmonds?
Yes, I agree about the signage. I think we do need to try to do something as soon as possible. However, I would defer to the wisdom of the city staff. They must evidently know something, well, in terms of maybe perhaps the city council has some problems with what we're trying to do. So I would defer to their good judgment, and I think they should bring it to us when they feel comfortable that it will go forward.
Interesting comment, Mr. Edmonds.
Mr. Edmonds has a lot of faith in us. I appreciate that. I no other comments.
Kathy? Yeah, I think, I don't know where we're at with the sign and if there's some other forces at work here, but I was fairly disappointed at the signage at the new bank location just down the street here in the new development. Yeah. In front of, or next to what used to be the old Standard Federal headquarters. I mean, that development looked really nice, very tactfully done lights, and then all of a sudden, at the end of the development where the bank is, you've got this sign screaming at you at night, and it's, I mean, even my wife has commented on it, and she's, you know, I mean, she's not one that...
Careful. Careful what you say. Careful.
Well,
you're on camera.
You're on TV. Yeah, I understand that. And
you're on a slippery slope.
I may pay for that, but her astute observation. Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Good time to adjourn.